Chapter 1951. The Nether Demon and Dongfang Qingmu didn't interfere. Long Air, the Demon Vulture race, the Heavenly Snake race, the Fire Demon Lion race, and many other experts were present. There was also the legalism, especially the legalism's Du Xiaojing. Yelu Han and the other two would definitely not be a match for him. Even with Dongfang Qingmu and the Nether Demon, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Hui Yuan didn't want to miss such an opportunity. He couldn't allow the dragons and legalism to divide that pile of heavenly treasures. As for Yelu Han and the others, they originally didn't have any grudges. In fact, Yelu Han and Fu Xiaojing had helped the famed families before. To Hui Yuan, this didn't mean anything. These people's reputations were too great and needed to be suppressed. Otherwise, how could the current leader of the famed family stand out? If there was anything to blame, it was the three people's bad luck. They had attracted so much trouble. When Hui Yuan walked out, the old man leading the famed families raised his eyebrows. However, he immediately followed beside Hui Yuan, tacitly agreeing with the famed family's choice. After all, he was also tempted by that pile of heavenly treasures. He couldn't let legalism and dragons divide it up. Lian Qingrong stood on the mountain peak, her eyes flickering. She waved the sleeves of her white battle robe and had the 8 maidservants stay on the mountain peak. She then followed behind Hui Yuan and the old man leading the famed families. Even the famed families want to interfere? Yelu Han and Fu Xiaojing seem to have helped the famed families before. That pile of heavenly treasures is too shocking. Who could resist the temptation? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame that guy for being too arrogant. Legalism and famed families joining in at the same time shocked the surrounding people. They couldn't help but feel pity for Yelu Han and the other two. There were also many people who thought that the mysterious purple-haired man was too arrogant. Looks like there's going to be a good show to watch. In the Desolate Country's lineup, Du Xiaoqing raised her eyebrows. Her pitch-black eyes rippled as if she was deep in thought. Du Xiaoqing only wanted to kill the dragons, legalism, and famed families. If she saw them alone, she would have already attacked. As for Yelu Han and Fu Xiaojing, Du Xiaojing, she didn't have a good impression. Could it be Zhen Qingchun, the child of the sacred matrix, was secretly sizing up the mysterious purple-haired man? He seemed to have noticed something. In the famed families want the legalism families? Their famed legalism and the famed families members. Their famed families also want the legalism? Famous famed families also want the famed families? Hui Yuan looked at Du Xiaofu. For some reason, when he saw Du Xiaofu's calm gaze, he felt somewhat uneasy. Hui Yuan secretly took a deep breath and suppressed the uneasiness in his heart. His expression darkened slightly as he stared at Du Xiaofu and shouted, "Brat, you're too arrogant. You're robbing everyone. As one of the 9 great clans, we can't tolerate your arrogance." Du Xiaofu looked at the 300 figures that had gathered in front of him. If these 300 people were above Kyushu, any one of them would be an overlord. Haha. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept past the dragons, legalism, and the famous clans. Suddenly, he raised his head and laughed out loud. This kind of laughter was accompanied by profound energy, shaking the void like the rumbling of thunder. Du Xiaofu's laughter also caused the surrounding living beings to be extremely surprised. At this moment, facing the alliance of the dragons, legalism, famous clans, demon vulture race, heavenly serpent race, and many other forces, that mysterious purple-haired man, Fu Xiaodu, actually had the mood to laugh. Could it be that he was scared silly? Yelu Han and Dugu Fenshin glanced at each other. Even though the two of them had broken through once more and weren't afraid of Long Air's group, with the addition of the legalism school and the famous school, especially Du Xiaojing, who was glaring at them from the side, they couldn't help but feel uncertain. This fellow can still laugh. Could it be that he doesn't think this matter is big enough? Yelu Han and Dugu Fenshin helplessly rolled their eyes at Du Xiaofu. This fellow didn't let Dongfang Qingmu and Nether Demon interfere. Now, he even took out a pile of heavenly treasures and invited the legalism and the famous clans to join in. This was simply smashing his own foot with a rock. Did he think that Du Xiaofu wasn't strong enough? Chi la la. But when the laughter stopped, Du Xiaofu waved his sleeve and the heavenly treasures in front of him directly disappeared into his Qiankuan bag. His gaze was fixed on the several hundred figures of the dragons, legalism, famous clans, demon vulture race, heavenly serpent race, and other forces. His purple hair fluttered and a cold intent climbed up his face. His cold voice resounded in the void. Even the famous clans are joining in? Fine, I'll deal with all of you as soon as possible. Brat, you are too arrogant. You are bound to suffer. The leader of the famous clans looked at Du Xiaofu with a heavy expression and said indifferently, "The famous clans just want to get their hands on the heavenly treasures. Why do you have to make it sound so dignified?" Du Xiaofu sneered and looked directly at the leader of the famous clans. "However, this is also good. In any case, I have a debt to settle with your famous clans. Settling it together will save some time. In the future, I will kill every one of your famous clans on sight. Brat, I'm afraid your strength is not enough. Just based on your words, you deserve to die." The leader of the famous clans took a step forward and gloomily glowered at Du Xiaofu. "Brother Jian, that brat is too arrogant. Why don't we attack together? At that time, everyone who sees the heavenly treasures will have a share. What do you think?" Hui Yuan looked sideways at Lien Qingrong and asked. "All right." Lien Qingrong nodded. Hui Yuan laughed. It seemed that he had roped in the Great Snow Mountain's descendant, Lien Qingrong. This person was enough to deal with Yelu Han and Dugu Fenshin. Laughing loudly, Hui Yuan looked directly at Du Xiaofu. His aura slowly gushed out and killing intent surged in his eyes. He said coldly, "Brat, those who don't put the famous clans in their eyes, die." The famous clans have roped in the Great Snow Mountain's descendant, Lien Qingrong. This time, Yelu Han's group is in even more trouble. Looking at the movement in front, the surrounding experts and major forces understood that after the famous clans had roped in the descendant of the Great Snow Mountain, Lien Qingrong, their strength had undoubtedly increased greatly. They were once again a great threat to Fu Xiao and Yelu Han. Du Xiaofu shook his head in an unconcerned manner as he looked at Hui Yuan and the old man, whose faces were currently filled with a cold, murderous intent. He slowly lifted his head and looked at Hui Yuan and the old man. An arrogant expression flashed across his eyes as he parted his mouth and laughed. "Honestly speaking, with just this little strength of the both of you, I can kill both of you with just a lift of my hand. The both of you are far from qualified to kill me." Du Xiaofu's words caused the surrounding people to be stunned. Although everyone knew that the mysterious purple-haired man was extraordinary, and Han Ke had ended up like this, at this moment, Hui Yuan and the leader of the famous clans were together. It was absolutely not a trivial matter. Who would dare to underestimate them? Even Long Air absolutely wouldn't dare to be careless. But at this moment, in the face of so many opponents, none of whom were weak, the mysterious purple-haired man still didn't put Hui Yuan and the leader of the famous clans in his eyes. What kind of arrogance was this? He was simply seeking his own death. Even Yelu Han and Dugu Fenshin could only sigh bitterly. In their impression, Fu Xiao had always been bold and mysterious, but he absolutely knew his limits. They didn't know why he was provoking them today. Originally, the three of them were able to deal with the siege of Long Air and the others. But now, with the addition of legalism, the descendant of the Great Snow Mountain, Lien Qingrong, and Du Xiaojing covetously watching from the side, they had definitely poked a hornet's nest. Only Dongfang Qingmu and Nether Demon, who were not far away, were calm at this moment. They didn't worry about Yelu Han and the others at all. Dongfang Qingmu and Nether Demon were very clear about Fu Xiao's true identity. Once they made a move, the ones who would suffer would be the legalism, the famous clans, and the dragons. It was a pity that the legalism and the famous clans were still in the dark. When the time came, it would be too late to cry. This guy is so arrogant. He has the ancient sorcerer's power of my scholarly faction. Could it really be him? In the scholarly faction, Kong Sansi's gaze was curiously fixed on the mysterious purple-haired man, and he fell into deep thought. Kong Sansi had always been suspicious of a person. He had a feeling that although he had never seen this purple-haired man before, he felt more and more like déjà vu, but he didn't dare to be sure. As the surrounding people's thoughts churned, Hui Yuan and the old man leading the famous clans froze for a moment before laughing in anger. This was especially true for the old man. After so many years, this was the first time he had been looked down upon by a junior. He was even said to be unqualified. Good, you're really arrogant. Then let this old man see just how much capital you have. The old man threw his head back and laughed heartily. Everyone could hear the anger and killing intent in his laughter. This expert of the famous clans had an illustrious reputation and an extremely high status in the famous clans, but at this moment he was thoroughly enraged. Long Air, Han Ju, Long Ming, and the others looked at the old man, but they were in no hurry to make a move. They knew how powerful Fu Xiaodu was. Now that a famous clans had been inexplicably pushed to the front, they were naturally happy to watch the situation. As the person in question, Du Xiaofu calmly stared at the famous clan elder's furious laughter with a calm gaze as he stared at the famous clan elder's loud laughter. A faint trace of coldness flashed within his eyes. Although Du Xiaofu did not deliberately pull in a famous clans, there was a certain element of it. Before this, Du Xiaofu had no intention of provoking a famous clans. He already had enough enemies. However, a famous clans were hunting down Dongli Qingqing. This was the bottom line that Du Xiaofu could not tolerate. Although he was currently surrounded by many people, Du Xiaofu was not worried. Putting aside the fact that once he revealed his true strength, he would be able to resolve this crisis. Moreover, there were also experts from the desolate country and the golden-winged great rocks. Chapter 1952. In addition, Du Xiaofu was someone who would kill any dragons and legalism he saw. At this moment, with Han Ke and Long Air here, Du Xiaofu didn't have the chance to kill them because of various scruples. But now, it seemed that the time had come. Being stared at by Du Xiaofu, the old man's face was extremely gloomy. He stretched out his hand from his long sleeve, slender but slightly withered. Strands of dazzling light lingered on his fingertips, and a dent appeared in the space before the light. What, you want to fight? I guarantee that you'll regret it. Seeing that the old man was about to attack, Du Xiaofu smiled faintly, and the corners of his mouth curled into an unfathomable and mysterious smile. Are you threatening me? You're courting death. The old man shouted coldly, and two dazzling beams of light shot out from his eyes like lightning. He suddenly took a step forward, and his hair stood on end. His body glowed, and his aura surged out, distorting space and shaking heaven and earth. Boom! In an instant, the old man couldn't take it anymore. He jumped into the air, and with a shake of his arm, his 5 fingers clenched into a fist that distorted space, and punched towards Du Xiaofu's chest with a terrifying distortion of space. This punch was filled with killing intent, and it shook the surroundings. Rumbling sounds erupted from the fist, and it was deafening and dazzling with runes. Without a doubt, this old man was a main region expert, one of the strongest experts below the Saint Realm. Moreover, this old man was a main region expert of the famous family. His strength was undoubtedly extremely terrifying. But facing such a punch, Du Xiaofu wasn't afraid. He didn't retreat, and instead, he moved forward and punched out. Boom! There was a loud explosion as the two fists collided. Runes surged and space cracked. Then, as everyone's eyes trembled, a shocking scene appeared. The latter didn't move at all, and he maintained the posture of advancing instead of retreating. On the other hand, the body of the old man leading the House of Famed family was directly sent flying in the air as blood spurted out from his mouth. No. While all eyes were on the confrontation between Du Xiaofu and the famed family leader, an extremely terrified shriek suddenly resounded through the air. Such a scream and fear would make anyone who heard it tremble violently. Everyone looked over when they heard the voice, only to see the number 1 person of the younger generation, Hui Yuan, standing in front of the famous clan's lineup. His eyes had shrunk, and his eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets. His lips were parted, and the terrified scream was emitted from his mouth. At that moment, there was a tip of a saber at the center of Hui Yuan's brows. It shone with a cold light, and the person holding the saber hilt was the successor of Great Snow Mountain, Lian Qingrong. That white-robed man was too handsome. His skin was like jade, and his eyes were black and white. The slight smile on his face could move all the women in the world. At this moment, with Lien Qingrong as the center, dazzling white ice runes filled the air. Ice and frost that filled the skies suddenly fell from the void. Everywhere was pure white, as if glaciers were falling and fluctuating the void. He slowly pulled out the saber in his hand. It was a terrifying weapon. It looked like a saber, but it wasn't a saber, and its power was monstrous. As soon as it appeared, the clouds in the void moved, and white runes shot into the sky. It was as if it could freeze the world and freeze this part of the void. This was Lien Qingrong's weapon, the heavenly ice blade that had fought against Du Xiaofu's purple gold heavenly tower. Qi, the heavenly ice blade, was pulled out from the back of Hui Yuan's head. In Lien Qingrong's hand, endless ice power was released. The space around the blade was frozen, and pitch-black spatial cracks faintly spread out. Why? Hui Yuan looked to the side with difficulty at Lien Qingrong behind him. His pupils shrunk, and he was shocked. Death crept into the depths of his shattered primordial spirit. Starting from the center of his brows, a layer of ice covered his body in an instant. Crack! Soon after, under everyone's dumbstruck gazes, his body exploded in the void and turned into shattered ice. His soul was extinguished, and he couldn't be more dead. Because you don't have the qualifications. Lien Qingrong answered Hui Yuan, whose soul had already been extinguished. Killing him was as calm as cutting down a blade of grass. There was an indescribable aura of martial prowess and transcendence. All of this happened too quickly. It was so fast that even the experts and disciples of the famous clan in the surroundings were still in a daze, and Hui Yuan had already been killed. The dignified number one of the younger generation of the famous clan, Hui Yuan, who had undergone nirvana, didn't even have the chance to make a move. His soul was extinguished just like that. Lien Qingrong. A sorrowful and angry roar reverberated. That was the angry roar of the old man who had just stabilized his retreat. He didn't care about the wound on his fist and the bleeding. His eyes were bloodshot, and his hair was standing on end. He looked on helplessly as Lien Qingrong directly killed the defenseless Hui Yuan. He was powerless to do anything. The person who had died was the future of the famous clan. His heart was bleeding and his blood was burning from such a loss. During this period of time, the members of the famous clan had treated Lien Qingrong as a distinguished guest, yet the old man never expected that Lien Qingrong would suddenly make a move and kill Hui Yuan at this moment. Boom! Shock, rage, and his blood was burning. The eyes of the old man leading the group were bloodshot and dazzling. His body was covered in dense, dazzling symbols that were like burning divine flames. Amidst his sorrowful and angry roar, he directly pounced towards Lien Qingrong. I've said that you'll regret it. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu's figure had also quietly appeared beside the old man who was the leader of the famous family. A faint, cold cry was emitted from the corners of his mouth, which lifted into a sneer. A special rune glow appeared in both of his eyes and directly enveloped the old man's body, causing the latter's blood-red eyes to become dull. Sumeru illusion, it really is that brat. In front of the people from the desolate country, Zhen Qingquan's inverted triangular eyes revealed a smile. To him, although the mysterious purple-haired man looked different from Du Xiaofu when he saw him last time, he had long suspected him. At this moment he was even more certain. This was because the Sumeru illusion was taught by him. In a flash, as the old man's eyes became lifeless, Du Xiaofu's sleeve shook, and an incomparably domineering aura that looked down on all living things suddenly swept out. At the same time, a fist violently blasted out. This fist was faintly accompanied by the roar of a dragon and the long cry of a divine elephant, causing the void to rumble. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky. The void in front of the fist shattered, and the terrifying energy of the runes rippled out like a tsunami. An invisible domineering aura spread out in all directions. At this moment, this aura filled the eyes of the people in the surroundings with fear. In the desolate countries group, the eyes of Yi Piaoling, Du Little Tiger, Du Xiaoqing, Jialo Jueyu, Mo Tianxiao, and the others suddenly trembled violently. This domineering aura was all too familiar to them. With a muffled boom, Du Xiaofu's fist landed on the head of the old man from the famous family. Immediately, the old man's forehead cracked, and his skull crackled as blood gushed out. Bang bang. Soon after, the body of the old man from the famous family exploded in midair. Blood splattered everywhere, and the void shattered. A master from the famous family had not even been able to withstand a single punch. His soul had not been able to escape, and his soul had been destroyed. In fact, he had been killed in a way that was too simple. All of this had happened too quickly, and it was closely related to Hui Yuan's death. Everyone was shocked, and many people in the surroundings were dumbfounded. The remaining disciples of the famous family all seemed to have lost their minds, and it was difficult for them to regain their senses. Gulp, gulp. Even Yelu Han and Dugafenshin were stunned at this moment, and they secretly swallowed their saliva. Long Air, Han Kueyoyo, the Wild Bear Region Lord, the Fire Demon Lion Clan, the Demon Vulture Clan, and the Sky Serpent Clan's experts were also shocked. They had originally wanted the famous family to take the lead, but who would have thought that the two experts from the famous family would be so weak? The other people who had surrounded Yelu Han and the other two were undoubtedly even more shocked and terrified, and they all trembled. Strictly speaking, Master Realm experts like the famous family had been killed in a single move. They were shocked and terrified by such strength. Du Xiaofu's cold gaze swept across the surroundings, and there was disdain and murderous intent in his eyes. Since you've come to provoke me again and again, then all of you can die. After killing the leader of the famous family, Du Xiaofu didn't hold back at all. His figure fluttered like a god, and golden light surged out from his body as he began to use the domineering cultivation technique of the golden-winged Great Preng clan. His speed was too fast, and Du Xiaofu's speed was even faster than lightning. Even Long Air and the other experts couldn't stop him at all. Bang! Several people closest to Du Xiaofu were sent flying, and blood spurted out. Their bodies shattered in the process, and they were directly killed by Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared, and with a sweep of his long sleeve, layers of golden runes erupted and swept forward. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Rumble, rumble. The golden runes were like a great preng spreading its wings, shattering the void. A blazing light erupted in midair, and a large area of the void was submerged, and many figures were directly smashed into pieces like flies. This is, in the golden-winged Great Preng clan, Jialo Guanyu, Jialo Jiheng, Jialo Jueyu, and all the other experts trembled, and their gazes were fixed on Du Xiaofu as if they had been electrocuted. Her voice was as cold as ice, and Lian Qingrong also attacked. Her battle robe was covered in snow-like runes, and an ancient aura spread out from her body. Dazzling runes spread out from her body, and the surrounding void was frozen. She was like a snow mountain god in the middle of a world of ice. Many people were used to calling her the successor of the Great Snow Mountain, but they had forgotten her other title, the Snow Spirit War Emperor. She was the War Emperor, and she was famous for her battles. Her pressure descended, and the cold air froze the void, causing the heavens to collapse and the earth to shatter. Chapter 1953. A terrifying icy aura swept out, causing the void to boil and freezing everything within 1,000 miles. Bang, bang, bang. The experts of the famous families in the surroundings were blasted into pieces one after another. Some of the disciples of famous families were pierced by the icy rune arrows and died on the spot. Quick, join forces and kill that guy. Long Air's shout was like thunder. He recovered from the shock and sensed the supreme beast energy of the golden-winged rock clan that the other party had just used. He vaguely guessed the former's true identity and was calling for the experts to join forces to deal with him. The arrow on the bow had to be shot. Although all the experts were shocked and trembling, there was no turning back now. Quick, join forces. The strongest experts of the Fire Red Lion clan, Heavenly Snake clan, and Demon Vulture clan, as well as the Wild Bear Domain Lord and a few other main region experts, attacked at the same time. They had seen the former's terror and attacked with all their might. They didn't hold back at all and didn't dare to hold back at all. Oh, in an instant, a fire-red lion stood tall and let out a deafening lion roar. A demon vulture covered the sky and rushed out. A heavenly snake coiled in the sky, a fist mark pierced through the void, and a giant bear stood tall in the sky. Rumble, more than a dozen main region and domain realm experts attacked at the same time. The void was vast and mighty as the wind and clouds surged. The sky rumbled as all kinds of beast energies and killing moves were unleashed. The energy surged like waves and swept toward Du Xiaofu with earth-shattering force. Kill! Du Xiaofu shouted. His eyes were deep and golden light instantly soared into the sky. The golden light was like countless golden ribbons that poured down and hung in the void. The golden light emitted a blazing golden light. From the golden light, the phantom of a golden-winged roc traversed the void like a living creature. It soared into the sky and its eyes were like two suns. Screech! The image of the golden-winged roc cried out, and it was as if thunder was rumbling. Mysterious talisman markings sprayed out with peerlessly domineering and ferocious might as it soared out, and its ferocious might covered and spread out, causing the entire space to tremble. Facing the formula that swept over with earth-shattering force, the phantom of the golden-winged roc soared into the sky. Domineering energy fluctuations rose and fell like the ocean, golden light filled the sky, and runes surged, suppressing everything. Supreme golden-winged roc beast energy. Everyone around was shocked. That was the supreme beast energy of the golden-winged roc race. Could it be him? Many people were stunned. Who else in the world could comprehend the supreme beast of the golden-winged great Pengbird clan to such an extent? From the way he attacked just now, many people could clearly feel that his domineering aura was too similar to that guy's. Rumble! Du Xiaofu made his move. He activated the supreme beast energy of the golden-winged roc and blocked the earth-shattering attacks. He forced the 10 or so experts back. The enormous beasts were sent flying through the air. Some of them were even coughing up blood. Domineering Dao! Du Xiaofu let out a roar that sounded like the roar of a dragon and the cry of a divine elephant. It shook the void as if there was a thunderous roar. In an instant, the sound waves swept out in all directions, causing heaven and earth to tremble violently. Ow, 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 ow! The entire void was rumbling, and countless loud roars reverberated in the sky. It was like thunder from the 9 heavens, and it resounded throughout the mortal world, causing one's heart to tremble in fear. The sound waves reverberated in the sky, causing living creatures to tremble. Those who were close to it revealed a painful expression. The terrifying sound waves swept toward the blood-red light, causing it to boil. A heavenly snake was shaken into 2 halves, a fire-red demon lion was shattered, and a demon eagle was shattered into a bloody mist. Among the near 300 figures in the air, more than 100 of them exploded along with this loud roar. Their corporeal bodies exploded from the inside out. That roar was not a simple sound wave, but one that contained a kind of martial arts. The heavenly snake, the demon eagle, the fire-red demon lion, and the other experts were all pure-blooded demon beasts. They were all giants in the world, and their strength could be said to have reached a terrifying level. Any one of them was ridiculously powerful. Any one of them could sweep away an area and cause the crowd to change their expressions. There were more than a dozen powerful experts from various races. They had joined forces, and some of them had secretly activated their treasures. With such a joint force, even a half-saint expert would not dare to confront them head-on. But now, more than half of these experts had been killed by Du Xiaofu. The remaining few were on their last breaths and were not far from death. Go to hell! Du Xiaofu's killing intent soared. He did not stop. Golden light wrapped around his body, and his domineering aura crushed the surroundings. Du Xiaofu had been restraining his cultivation and strength. At this moment, he had no scruples. He was like a suppressed volcano that was about to erupt. Bang! Du Xiaofu punched a beast expert who had just retreated, creating a bloody hole in the void. Bang! A dying expert was smashed into pieces by Du Xiaofu's palm, and a bloody mist poured out. Du Xiaofu's figure flashed through, leaving not a trace of blood. Roar! A dark golden dragon appeared in the void. It was as if one could not see its head. The dragon's scales were shining, but they were dripping with blood. Golden light rose like a sun. Immediately, golden light erupted from his back. A pair of golden-winged penguins spread out. These were the true Peng wings. When they spread out, their aura surged into the sky, revealing an indescribable pressure of the Tao. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's facial features and bones twisted. In an instant he returned to his true body. His black hair was suffused with golden light. His face was resolute and resolute. At this moment, he was covered in a cold aura. His figure was tall and straight. As the Peng wings flapped behind him, he stood there like a god. It was as if a true Peng had come into being. A domineering and terrifying pressure spread out, making people want to kneel and kowtow. Chapter 1954. When such a figure appeared in the sky, everyone's gazes froze. Some people's hearts trembled, and their hair stood on end. They could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. "Brother Qingchun, it's Big Brother. Big Brother is here." In the Desolate Nations lineup, Du Xiaoqing's eyes froze for a moment on her beautiful face. Then, she immediately danced with joy as she pulled on Zhen Qingchuan's arm and shouted. She was indescribably excited. "Master, that's Master." Runes appeared in the little tiger's pitch-black eyes. He was so excited that his body trembled. "It's the young clan leader. That Fu Xiaodu is the young clan leader." Jialo Juekong and the other young golden-winged great rocks exclaimed. They were all dumbfounded. "President, Fu Xiaodu is our president. Our president is here." The Desolate Nation's disciples were in an uproar. They saw Fu Xiaodu killing in all directions and sweeping through all the major factions. How domineering and powerful was he? They instantly realized that it was their president. They were all pleasantly surprised and excited. Their blood boiled like boiling water. "It really is that brat. I was wondering who had the strength to sweep through all the major factions." Ha! Jialo Guanyu, Jialo Zheng, and the other elders of the golden-winged great rocks were stunned for a moment before laughing loudly. Sweeping through all the major factions and causing them to flee in all directions. How could such a man be anyone else? He was the young clan leader of the golden-winged great rocks. Jialo Jueyu and Jialo Jueyu looked at the familiar figure with a helpless gaze. However, they soon revealed a smile. The 18 celestial guards, Yi Piaoling, and the sacred array child, Zhen Qingchun, were stunned for a moment. However, they were not too surprised. When they saw Du Xiaofu appear in disguise, they had long suspected Fu Xiaodu's identity. "It's really him." In the Confucian school, Kong Sansi stared at that familiar figure. The disciples and experts of the Confucian school around him were all equally astonished. With the power of the sorcerer god of the Confucian school, they should have guessed that this guy was the Demon King. The gazes of the Taoists, Buddhists, and other major forces froze as well. Their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. "He knows the martial arts of my Taoist sect. It is indeed this fellow. His disguise technique is extraordinary. He can actually hide all his aura." Su Yangzi was dumbfounded. He had his suspicions back then, but he was deceived by the disguise technique. Now that he thought about it, he could only smile bitterly. At this moment, the people who were the most shocked were definitely not Du Xiaoqing, Su Yangzi, Kong Sansi, and the others. At this moment, Yelu Han and Du Gefenshin were the most shocked. They could feel that terrifying aura. That was the strongest existence below the Saint Realm. "Kill!" A cold shout suddenly resounded like a sharp sword. 18 men rushed out from the desolate country's formation. The formless aura froze the void. It was as if 18 peerless weapons had been born. "Die!" The man in the lead was dressed in a black robe. His eyes were piercingly cold under his scattered bangs. He slashed out with his sword and a beast expert was directly crushed. "Kill!" 18 people attacked at the same time. These 18 people were famous for their ferocity. They were the 18 celestial guards of the world society. "Kill!" Du Xiaoqing's beautiful figure rushed out. Green and red flames burned the void. Roar! A tiger's roar shook the sky. A huge black flying tiger flapped its wings. Black runes soared into the sky, bringing with it a tornado-like spatial airflow that engulfed the vast sky. The tiger's body was domineering. It was as fast as lightning. The tiger's claws tore through the sky, destroying everything in its path. "Kill!" Mo Tianxiao, Jialo Jueyu, Jialo Juekong, and the others also attacked. These individuals arrived through the sky, bringing with them lightning and thunder, producing irregular scenes. It was to the extent where many creatures in the surroundings couldn't even endure this type of pressure. Du Xiaofu revealed his identity. At this moment, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, the Desolate Country's experts, and Jialo Juekong, Jialo Jueyu, and the others all attacked. How could they endure it? On the other hand, Sacred Array Child Jin Qingchun, Jialo Guanyu, Jialo Zhiheng, and the other elders of the great golden-winged pengbird race didn't interfere. They knew very well that they didn't need to do anything. Everything happened too quickly. It was too shocking. When that familiar figure appeared, Han Ju and the few legalism experts and disciples who were already few in number were stunned. "Retreat quickly!" Han Keju cried out loudly. Long Air's death made their hair stand on end. They were terrified and didn't dare to move forward. When they came to their senses, they began to retreat. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, green saber light swept out. The saber light pierced through the air, piercing through the backs of the few legalism experts and disciples. Bang bang bang. Those figures then turned into a bloody mist, their souls extinguished. "Old dog, you can't escape." Golden light broke through the sky. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in front of the retreating Han Keju. The great Peng golden wings on his back flapped. Green saber light swirled in the air and flew into his palm. Du Xiaofu kept a close eye on the legalism people. How could he let them leave? He activated the illusionary saber formation to kill them. Especially Han Keju. He had held back that day and didn't kill him. At this moment, Du Xiaofu didn't plan to let him go. Looking at Du Xiaofu who suddenly appeared in front of him, Han Keju's heart trembled. Long Ming couldn't block one move. After being seriously injured, he was probably no match for Long Ming. He couldn't even muster up the will to fight. "Xiao Jing, kill him quickly. Quick!" Such a shout came out of Han Keju's mouth. He shouted loudly at the beautiful figure on the mountain peak. At this moment, Han Keju's heart was about to break down. He still remembered the first time he saw this man. At that time, the former was so weak that he didn't take him seriously. But in just a few years, the man in front of him had reached a level that made his soul tremble. Such growth was too terrifying. It was already heaven-defying. Now that he thought about it, Han Keju realized that Du Xiaofu didn't kill him on purpose when they fought a few days ago. Han Keju's heart was filled with deep regret. If he had known this would happen, he would have killed this little bastard in the legalism. But it was too late for regrets now. On the mountain peak, the fairy-like woman turned her head to look in his direction. Then, she turned her head away. She was calm and unruffled, as if none of this had anything to do with her. "Du Xiaojing, do you want to betray the legalism? Quick, do it. Quick." Han Keju was in despair. True fear crept into the depths of his soul. Du Xiaojing had no intention of saving him. He couldn't control him at all. The thing he was most worried about still happened. "Old man, I said that day that I would definitely kill you one day." Du Xiaofu looked at Han Keju. This old man looked so dignified, but he was the most detestable and vicious. "Ha!" Han Keju laughed in extreme fear. But his laughter was hideous. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Little bastard, do you dare to kill me? Don't forget, your mother is still in the legalism. If you dare to kill me, you'll never see your mother again." Chapter 1955. Is that so? But I don't think it's a big deal to kill you. As long as my mother can still be threatened by legalism, then my mother will be safe in legalism, right? Du Xiaofu sneered and walked toward Han Ke, the murderous intent in his eyes undisguised. Being stared at by that murderous gaze, Han Ke trembled all over and involuntarily took a step back. Han Ke's eyes were trembling. He didn't want to die. Even if his lineage spirit was destroyed and the saint stage was getting further and further away from him, he didn't want to die. Du Xiaofu was right. Even if Han Aodong could be used to threaten the father and son, she would not be able to do anything. Moreover, as long as Du Xiaojing was in legalism, Han Aodong would be safe. He was no threat to this bastard in front of him. His last glimmer of hope was destroyed. "Brat, I'll kill you." Suddenly, Han Ke roared savagely and attacked instantly. Spells surged and runes unfolded, shocking the void. With a strange phenomenon, he suddenly charged toward Du Xiaofu. Han Ke knew that he had no chance of escaping. He could only wait for an opportunity. Still want to make one last struggle? As Du Xiaofu spoke, the golden rock wings on his back flapped. Golden light filled the sky as he punched out with his fist. Bang! The void was shattered and the space was in chaos. Many creatures did not even see what was going on. They only saw Han Ke's body fly backward and spit out large mouthfuls of blood. Golden light streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning. Under the gazes of the crowd, Han Ke, who had been sent flying, suddenly came to a halt in midair. Behind Han Ju, there was a slender hand holding her back, stopping her from retreating. The owner of the slender hand was dressed in a long green dress and her eyes were like stars. She was extraordinary. Such a woman, who else could it be but Du Xiaojing? Oh my God, what's going on? Oh no, is Du Xiaojing going to attack? Could it be that the siblings are going to start a war? Du Xiaojing has always been a supporter of legalism, and Du Xiaofu is a thorn in the side of legalism. Will there be a battle between the siblings? When they saw Du Xiaojing, the air froze as countless gazes focused on him. Everyone present was well aware of Du Xiaojing's strength. Back then, even that mysterious group of young men and women had to retreat in defeat. If Du Xiaojing wanted to save Han Ke Yao now, he wondered who would be better, compared to the Demon King Du Xiaofu. One was the Demon King, and the other was the innate Holy Sovereign. Once they started fighting, it would shake the world. Seeing his sister Xiaojing, Du Xiaofu also raised his eyes slightly. Light flickered in his eyes as he stopped in midair. Xiaojing, quick, kill that little bastard. Kill him for me, kill that bastard. Suddenly seeing Du Xiaojing in the midst of his horror, the bloodied Han Kuoyoyo seemed to have reignited the flame of hope. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth along with pieces of his broken organs, making him look very hideous. Chi! Du Xiaojing reached out with his slender hand. Purple lightning emanated from his fingertips, but it wasn't aimed at Du Xiaofu. In the blink of an eye, it landed lightly on Han Ke Yao's throat. Han Ke Yao's neck was grabbed by Du Xiaojing like a little chick. At this moment, Han Ke Yao seemed to have yet to come back to her senses. Her gaze was a little dazed. Arg! It wasn't until Du Xiaojing exerted force and lightning erupted from her slender fingers that Han Ke Yao's eyes turned red instantly. Blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth and her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Her pupils constricted, and she stuck her tongue out of her mouth as though she wanted to say something. But at this moment, with Du Xiaojing's tight grip on her throat, Han Ke Yao couldn't speak. You shouldn't have threatened my mother. My brother isn't a bastard either. As soon as Du Xiaojing's gentle voice fell, her fingers curled slightly. Her gaze was cold and indifferent, and a terrifying lightning of punishment swept out. Kacha! A cracking sound came from Han Ke Yao's throat. A terrifying destructive force swept through her mud pill palace. In an instant, there was a muffled sound in her head, and her primordial spirit was destroyed at the same time. The old supremacy of legalism, a terrifying figure of the current era, was destroyed in both his primordial spirit and primordial spirit. With a sweep of her slender hand, Han Ke Yao's corpse was thrown into the air by Du Xiaojing. Her actions were clean and efficient. Her hair fluttering, Du Xiaojing stood in the void with an inexplicable sense of arrogance that made living beings tremble. Han Ke Yao is dead. She died in Du Xiaojing's hands. The surrounding living beings sucked in a cold breath. This change was shocking. At first, they thought that Du Xiaojing was going to save Han Ke Yao. Who would have thought that Han Ke Yao would be killed by Du Xiaojing instead? Du Xiaofu stood in the void, the golden wings on his back retracted. Looking at his sister in front of him, his eyes began to soften. Bang bang bang. The surrounding battlefields in the void had also calmed down. With the 18 heavenly guards, Mo Tianshao, Jialo Juayu, Little Tiger, Du Xiaoqing, and the other supremes, how could the remaining heavenly snake tribe, demon vulture tribe, and dragons be a match for them? They didn't even have the power to stop them. Hundreds of living beings from the various factions who were about to surround Du Xiaofu, Yelu Han, and Dugafenshin were killed on the spot. Not a single one of them escaped. The mountain peaks were a mess. Corpses were strewn everywhere, and rivers of blood flowed. Some of the desolate nation's disciples had already begun to clean up the battlefield, plundering the treasures and cutting off the refining treasures from the beast corpses. Although the surrounding living beings' eyes were bloodshot, there were powerful dragon corpses, powerful demon vultures, and heavenly snake corpses, all of which were precious treasures. No one dared to step forward. The desolate nation's supremes were feared by everyone. No one dared to provoke them. They're all dead, sigh. Dragons, legalism, famed clans, heavenly snake tribe, demon vulture tribe, and fire demon lion tribe, these guys are really unlucky to have provoked that demon king. Fu Xiaofu, Du Xiaofu ha, what a great Fu Xiaofu. The experts from the various factions on the mountain peaks exclaimed. I'm afraid no one below the Saint Realm can resist that demon king. Indestructible, this growth speed is too fast. Du Xiaojing is also indestructible. These siblings are too abnormal. Monsters, everyone from the Du family is a monster. What is the background of this Du family? With such talent, why were they unknown before? The crowd discussed animatedly, exclaiming in shock. Chapter 1956. Translator. H2 to H2 Mr. Long Air, Han Keiying, and Hui Yuan were all killed. In the blink of an eye, the supreme experts from the Wasteland country and the golden-winged Ping race took action. They swept through everything and killed all enemies. Many creatures were still like clay sculptures, unable to regain their senses. Originally, everyone thought that Fu Xiaodu, Yelu Han, and the others would be in big trouble. Who knew that the final turn of events would be so shocking? Fu Xiaodu was the demon king Du Xiaofu, sweeping through everything. Almost all of the strongest people like Long Air had died at the hands of the demon king alone. At this moment, the tall man stood in the air, shocking many creatures. Even the powerful Long Air was no match for him and was killed directly. Dragons, Long Air, had dragon blood and an indestructible dragon body. He was also a supreme Nirvana-reborn cultivator with an indestructible cultivation. He could probably stand tall under the Saint Realm. But such a powerful Long Air couldn't even withstand a single blow from the Demon King. Demon King Du Xiaofu is as fierce and powerful as the legends say. He's too strong. The legalism's Han Keiying actually died at the hands of Du Xiaojing. Looks like these siblings are brother and sister. The surroundings became noisy, causing a huge commotion. The place was in an uproar. Big brother. Third young master. President. Young clan leader. Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, Mo Tianxiao, Jialo Juekong, Jialo Jueyu, and the other fiends rushed to Du Xiaofu's side and happily crowded around him. Du Xiaofu smiled and nodded slightly. Big brother, it's really you. You didn't tell me. You can't do this next time. Otherwise, I'll be angry. Du Xiaoqing pouted and intimately moved to Du Xiaofu's side. Lian Qingrong stepped forward. The ice sky blade had already been retracted. Her eyes were clear, and her martial prowess was extraordinary. 8 beautiful women in white followed behind her. Greetings, guild leader. Under everyone's gaze, the handsome man bowed in front of Du Xiaofu. Everyone was stunned. Even Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, Mo Tianxiao, and Jialo Jueyu were stunned. Didn't the Snow Spirit Battle Empress purposely go against the desolate nation and collude with a famous expert? But why did he suddenly kill Hui Yuan? What was going on now? Thank you, Country Guardian Venerable. Du Xiaofu raised Lian Qingrong and smiled as he announced Lian Qingrong's identity. Then he looked at Dongfang Qing Mu and Ming Yao in the distance and said to Mo Tianxiao, Dongfang Qing Mu and Ming Yao have also joined the Huang country. In the future, the Huang country will have to trouble you. Gu, hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Tian Lang and Ming Yao's throat burned. Even with his mental fortitude, he couldn't help but swallow. Jialo Jueyu, Jialo Juekong, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, and the others immediately looked at Ming Yao and Dongfang Qing Mu in unison. They were also shocked. The Snow Spirit Battle Empress, Lian Qingrong, the undead spirit demon, Dongfang Mu, and the Dark Hell Emperor, Ming Yao. These three were as famous as Tian Lang. Many forces in the world wanted to rope them in, but they didn't even care about the 9 great families. But now, these terrifying fellows had all joined the Huang country. Were they trying to scare everyone? Dongfang Mu and Ming Yao have also joined the Huang country. They already knew about the Demon King's identity. Yelu Han and Dugafenshin, who were not far away, finally understood. Their faces twitched. No wonder Dongfang Mu and Ming Yao had agreed to form an alliance when they came out of the treasure. They must have known about Du Xiaofu's identity. Only they had been kept in the dark. What? Dongfang Mu, Ming Yao, and Lian Qingrong have all joined the Huang country? Boom. The place was in an uproar. People's voices were like waves, and their auras swept out. All the forces present were shaken. All the forces were terrified. All the forces and experts were shocked beyond words. The Huang country had many geniuses and supreme beings. But now, the undead spirit demon, Dongfang Mu, Ming Yao, and the snow spirit battle empress, Lian Qingrong, these 3 extraordinary supreme beings had joined the Huang country. How were they going to let others live? Oh my God, is the Huang country trying to crush the world? 3 more supreme beings have joined, and they are the 3 terrifying supreme beings who are as famous as Tian Lang. Heavenly demon Yelu Han, fire cloud evil god Dugafenshin, and demon king Du Xiaofu have all been in an alliance. These are 2 more supreme beings. This is too terrifying. The Huang country is going to prosper. From now on, they will enter a glorious era and rise to power. No force in the world can stop them. The Huang country is going to dominate the world. No force can stop them. All the creatures were in an uproar. Everyone was shocked. At this moment, who could stop the Huang country? Even the 9 great clans, as long as the Sage Realm experts did not appear, no one in the world could stop the Huang country. In fact, the number of supreme beings in the Huang country was probably no less than all the supreme beings in the world. This had reached a terrifying level. It was too abnormal. The Huang country had only recently risen to power. With so many supreme beings gathered in one place, how could the creatures present not know what this meant in the future? Long Air, Han Ke Yao, and the others are really unlucky. Some creatures sighed. How unlucky were Long Air, Han Ke Yao, and the others to have encountered the disguised Demon King Du Xiaofu. They probably died with their eyes wide open. The famous clan genius is the unluckiest. He was tricked by the Demon King Du Xiaofu so miserably. The successor of the Great Snow Mountain, the Snow Spirit Battle Empress, Lian Qingrong, must have joined the Huang country long ago. She purposely targeted the Huang country and the famous clan genius. The famous clan genius is so unlucky. He won't even know how he died. The famous clan genius is indeed aggrieved. Hui Yuan is really unlucky. Some creatures discussed in low voices. They all guessed that the Snow Spirit Battle Empress Lian Qingrong and the famous clan genius were definitely arranged by the Demon King Du Xiaofu in secret. The dignified Hui Yuan and the Master Realm expert had been tricked just like that. It was too tragic. In the future, don't provoke the people of the Huang country. The Demon King Du Xiaofu is not only ferocious, but also too cunning. I'm afraid they won't even know how they died. Many creatures had already secretly made up their minds to not provoke the people of the Huang country no matter what. The Demon King was too terrifying. Not only was he ferocious, but the problem was that once they offended the Demon King, they would probably die without knowing how they died. This guy. In the Golden Rock clan, Jialo Guanyu, Jialo Zheng, Jialo Yuantu, Jialo Yi, and the other elders looked at each other secretly. Their eyes were trembling, and golden light flickered in them. At this moment, even their hearts were in turmoil. Although the Golden-Winged Great Rock clan had only partially emerged, the Golden-Winged Great Rock clan had long known about sovereigns like the undead spirit demon Dongfang Mu, Dark Hell Emperor Ming Yao, and Snow Spirit Battle Emperor Lian Qingrong. If these people were at the same cultivation level, they would not be much weaker than Jialo Juayu. But now, these troublesome fellows had been roped into the Huang country by Du Xiaofu. How could Jialo Guanyu and the others not be shocked? What trick did the Demon King use to be able to rope in Lian Qingrong, Ming Yao, and Dongfang Qingmu? Among the Taoists, an old man's face froze in shock. He could not figure it out. Not far away, on a mountain peak, there was the lineup of the Buddhists. An old monk was wearing a kasaya. He looked very old, but his eyes were like golden lamps, and he was hale and hearty. Amitba, that almsgiver do is different. The old monk spoke, his voice like a bronze bell. He has never been ordinary, a young monk said. A young monk spoke. His skin was fair and glossy, and his face was as delicate as jade. There were 9 scars on his forehead, and they were like 9 mysterious symbols that flickered with light. His eyes, in particular, were suffused with divine light. They were like the stars in the sky, making it hard for people to look away. You are also from the central state. How much do you know about him? The old monk asked the young monk. This young monk did not wear a kasaya. Instead, he wore a scarlet brocade robe with a black belt around his waist. He faintly exuded an aura of supremacy. However, the aura he exuded was able to calm one's soul and calm one's heart without any ripples. He was ninefold spirit of the immeasurable sect. He came from the central state and later joined the Buddhists. He has always been unfathomable, ninefold spirit said. The ninefold spirit opened its mouth, and after a moment, it said these words. Over the years, ninefold spirit thought that his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. He was favored by a senior of the Buddhists, and with the help of the Buddhist resources, he had achieved his current cultivation. At this moment, among his peers in the Buddhists, ninefold spirit was only inferior to Henglun. But looking at the familiar figure in the void in front of him, ninefold spirit knew that no matter how fast he improved, he could not compare to that abnormal existence. Even if one can enter the seal ahead, if a Saint Realm expert does not enter, who can compete with the desolate country and the sacred medicine on the heavenly Yu mountain? I'm afraid the others won't have much of a chance. Among the Taoists, an elder let out a bitter smile as he looked at the group of supreme sky prides from the barren nation. The Demon King was still around, and there were also the powerhouses from the golden-winged great rocks. When the time came, even if they saw the legendary treasure on the heavenly Yu mountain, they wouldn't be able to compete with the barren nation for it. He really lives up to his name. He's terrifyingly powerful. On a mountain peak, a beautiful woman in a long green dress looked at a tall man with shoulder-length black hair and muttered softly. Her appearance was enchanting, and her figure was alluring. Many people's eyes lit up, but they did not dare to get close to her. This was because many people knew that she was the original body of the 8-winged green crystal python, which was rumored to have disappeared. She was extremely terrifying. Very powerful. On a mountain peak, a man was surrounded by several people. His eyes were faintly golden, and runes were faintly emitted from them. His aura was extraordinary. He was a sky pride of the immemorial gold-devouring rat clan, and he had a great reputation in the current world. There was a lot of discussion in the surroundings. In the void, Du Xiaojing's beautiful figure stepped forward and looked at the man who looked similar to her. There were ripples in her clear eyes. The man in front of her was so similar to her, and they were connected by blood. Chapter 1957. Translator. H22 Mr. Looking at the otherworldly woman approaching, a smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's resolute face. A smile appeared in his eyes. He was a completely different person from the savage man who had just slaughtered everyone. She stood in front of him, less than a foot away. She raised her eyes slightly. The wind blew her black hair up, and a few strands fell on her forehead. She was as otherworldly as a fairy. Girl, you seem to have gotten thinner, Du Xiaofu said. He reached out and gently brushed the strands of hair in front of her forehead. His face was still smiling and his voice was very gentle. It was as if the one before him was a little deer, and he was afraid that he would scare her if he spoke too loudly. The word girl made Du Xiaojing's body tremble involuntarily. Her heart trembled, but she held it in. Maintaining the smile on her face, she called out softly, "Big brother." But when the word "big brother" came out of her mouth, it seemed to carry some kind of emotion. It was hard for her to hold it in. Her eyes began to moisten. She had never forgotten the past. Speaking of which, he had only been born 2 hours earlier than her. But because of the word big brother, even though they had never met before, he had given her selfless love. A love that was willing to give up his own life for her. Even thousands of kilograms were not enough to describe it. Is mother well? Du Xiaofu nodded and smiled. When the word big brother fell into his ears, it seemed to meld into his heart, spreading warmth in his heart. Mother is very well. She just misses you and father a little. Du Xiaojing said. She did her best to maintain the smile on her face. That's good. Father and I are also very well. You don't have to wait long. Father and I will go back to the legalism to pick up mother, Du Xiaofu said. Du Xiaojing nodded. She wanted to say something else, but in the end she did not say anything. Xiaofu, you finally appeared. The elders of the golden-winged Great Pengbird clan, the child of the sacred array Jin Qingchun, and the others all appeared in the air at this moment, arriving beside Du Xiaofu. Greetings, elders, brother Qingchun. Du Xiaofu bowed to Jialo Guanyu and the other elders. Brother, Sister Qingqing is currently being chased by the famous family's people. We've received news that Sister Qingqing has entered the seal restriction formation, and her whereabouts is unknown. We can't go there. Du Xiaoqing seemed Qingchun. Du Xiaofu, Qingchuan Sui and Qingchun. Is Qingchun was Zhang Xian's Qiu. Was Zai's Qingchuan's is? Qingchuan's Lu? Xiao. Du Xiaofu gently patted little Qing's shoulder. He had already received the news. When he first met Lian Qingrong, he wanted to know the news of the famous family as soon as possible, so he could help Dongli Qingqing as soon as possible. Hearing Du Xiaojing say that those mysterious young men and women were related to the restriction formation in front of them, Du Xiaofu was not surprised. Instead, he was happy. Those mysterious young men and women who practiced the rippling carefree steps seemed to be related to Dongli Qingqing as well. If that was the case, then Dongli Qingqing might be able to turn the situation around after walking into the restriction formation. No one said anything. They knew Du Xiaofu's temper. They also knew that Dongli Qingqing was inside and he would definitely go back to look for her. Xiaofu, you must be careful. Jialo Guanyu, Jialo Zhiheng, and the other elders could only remind Du Xiaofu to be careful. Brother, I will go with you. Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoqing, and the others both said that they wanted to go with Du Xiaofu. Wait for me here. Don't worry, I have the strength to protect myself. As soon as Du Xiaofu's voice fell, a golden light flashed under his feet and his figure swept forward. What is that Demon King trying to do? Could it be that the Demon King wants to break through the restriction formation? The creatures on the surrounding mountain peaks were surprised and looked at each other in dismay. Many experts had failed to break through the restriction formation and were buried inside. Could the Demon King succeed? Mist rose from the mountain range, making it hazy. In the distance, a dazzling light shone in the sky. Rich energy fluctuations filled the air. An incomparably huge mountain peak stood between heaven and earth like a towering giant. Du Xiaofu appeared in the void cautiously. The energy in front of him was torrential. Mysterious runes intertwined with green light and mist filled the air. Whoosh! A golden streak of light shot out from Du Xiaofu's palm. It pierced through space like an arrow and shot towards the space ahead. Boom! Suddenly, a green light filled the void in front of him. Mysterious runes shone brightly, and an ancient aura suddenly surged out, shaking the void. Walala! Around the golden energy light, a vortex gushed out of the void and swallowed it directly. Then, everything returned to normal. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. He clearly felt that his celestial qi energy was directly swallowed without leaving a trace. What a powerful restriction formation from ancient times. It's incomparably profound, Du Xiaofu exclaimed. After a little probing, he knew that the restriction formation was powerful. No wonder it stopped the footsteps of the major forces. It seems a little strange, but at the same time, Du Xiaofu was surprised. He felt a familiar aura and probed with his mind. That seal was powerful, but it gave off a vaguely familiar feeling. After a moment of astonishment, Du Xiaofu began to look ahead. His gaze was calm and focused. In the void behind him, many eyes were nervously watching. Not long after, Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up as he looked forward. He felt something special from the restriction formation in front of him. It was very similar to some of the things recorded in the heavenly spirit record left behind by his master, the Sacred Hand's Soul Emperor. After thinking about it carefully, Du Xiaofu found many clues and mysteries. And these mysteries seemed to be closely related to Dongli Qingqing's wave-treading free steps. The fluctuations in the restriction formation were similar to the weak water-bone river outside the heavenly Yu Mountain. It seemed to overlap with the wave-treading free steps. Is it really like this? Du Xiaofu murmured softly and became alert. The red-bone horse monkey's primordial spirit was ready. Golden light surged under its feet, and it floated like a god. It turned into a blurry figure and charged into the void in front of him. Dongli Qingqing entered the restriction formation. Du Xiaofu had no other choice. Even if he made a mistake by probing, he still had the red-bone horse monkey's primordial spirit. In the worst case, the purple thunder profound cauldron could protect him. Rumble! Du Xiaofu's figure stepped into the void in front of him. Suddenly, the entire void trembled and let out a loud sound. It was like the sound of heaven, shaking the heavens and the earth. In an instant, there was green light everywhere. Mist rose like the sea of clouds and exploded with endless light. It was as if a terrifying heavenly beast had been completely awakened from its slumber and opened its eyes from the chaos. There was a burst of light, accompanied by lightning and thunder. Lightning intertwined and the void boiled. Not good, the restriction formation has been completely disturbed. Behind the void, all the experts opened their eyes nervously and watched nervously. The disciples of the desolate country, Jialo Guanyu, and the others had serious expressions. Walala, the restriction formation was completely disturbed. The light was resplendent and it devoured all life. Du Xiaofu was inside and could feel the terror of this restriction formation. This restriction formation was like a world that devoured everything. The Xian Qi and life in his body were being devoured involuntarily. It was impossible to stop it. Boom! Golden light erupted from Du Xiaofu's body. His footsteps were as swift as a deity's, and his movements were unpredictable. He shuttled back and forth among the mysterious runes that filled the sky with a peculiar footwork. He activated a peculiar technique that caused runes to fly out and disperse the life-devouring energy. Just like this, Du Xiaofu's figure was like a deity. Light shone as he rampaged through the terrifying restriction formation and found a safe path. In a moment, Du Xiaofu had entered deep into the restriction formation. What? That demon king has already broken in. Such a scene caused the clouds in all directions to move, and a huge wave was created. That restriction formation must have weakened. We can go in now. There is a sacred medicine on the main peak of the heavenly Yu Mountain. Go in. There were figures with scarlet eyes and demonic beasts with glowing eyes. The temptation of the sacred medicine was simply irresistible. The restriction formation has weakened. Fight for the sacred medicine. Suddenly, there were loud shouts and auras surging in the void. One by one, the figures could no longer hold themselves back. They wanted to follow Devil King Du Xiaofu through that seal and fight for the sacred medicine. Chapter 1958. Stay calm, no one is allowed to move. Elder Jialo Guanyu reprimanded the people from the desolate country and the golden-winged rock clan. He did not think that now was the time to break through the seal. Let's wait and see. There were also elders from the various major forces who spoke up to stop their disciples from joining the ranks of those trying to break through the seal. Boom! Many creatures had just gotten close to the seal when the void suddenly trembled violently. Terrifying green talisman runes soared into the sky. Numerous life-devouring whirlpools appeared around the creatures. An ancient aura swept out and devoured everything. The creatures at the front were immediately devoured. Their skin began to age, their hair turned white, and their muscles began to wither. They turned from young to old. One could see with the naked eye that the life in their bodies was draining away. Miserable shrieks and wails rang out continuously. Then, they turned into dried corpses and disappeared into the void. Oh, save me, save me. There was no way to resist that kind of life-devouring. There was no lack of powerful experts among the creatures who were devoured. They unleashed their full strength and their auras were monstrous. However, in the seal, they were like lonely leaves in a hurricane. They were powerless to struggle and could only let out miserable shrieks of despair and fear. Retreat, quick! Bang bang! The creatures following behind stopped in horror and retreated rapidly. In their panic, many of them bumped into each other. Some of them were injured. It was a chaotic scene. Looks like we still can't enter. How did that benefactor do manage to break through? In the Buddhist sect, a hale and hearty old monk's eyes flickered. He could not help but worry when he saw that the demon king Du Xiaofu had already entered the seal. That guy is so strange. How did he manage to enter? How can this seal be broken? If this goes on, the sacred medicine on the Heavenly U Mountain will have nothing to do with us. This trip will be a waste. Don't worry, the sacred medicine is definitely not that easy to obtain. Even if the demon king Du Xiaofu has already entered, he might not be able to obtain the sacred medicine. Some people discussed with worry in their hearts. The demon king Du Xiaofu had already entered the seal, and they were now obstructed by the seal. The legendary sacred medicine on the Heavenly U Mountain was getting further and further away from them. Inside the seal, the talisman runes were dazzling and full of changes. Du Xiaofu's wandering steps. He used the heavenly spirit records left by his master's sacred hand Spirit Emperor, the Spirit Emperor, dispelling the terrifying devouring power in the seal to seal. This seal was so terrifying that even a Saint Realm expert would have a hard time breaking through it. Into the seal, to the seal, to the into the seal, to the seal. Enter into the seal, another, to another, another A. On the other side of the seal, there was a completely different world. A magnificent mountain range appeared in front of Du Xiaofu's eyes. The mountains and rivers were beautiful, and the mountains stood tall, covered with an ancient primeval forest. White mist rose in heaven and earth, and multicolored light filled the air during the day. The mountains and rivers were ethereal, like a fairyland, accompanied by an ancient and holy aura. In the center of the mountain range in the distance, there was a huge peak that towered into the sky. It was like a pillar of heaven and earth, surrounded by clouds and multicolored light. The energy of multicolored light was like a silver light from the 9 heavens. Du Xiaofu stood in the void and took a deep breath. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth here was much richer than outside. Taking a deep breath felt like swallowing the energy of heaven and earth. Inside, there were treasured medicines everywhere. Du Xiaofu stepped into it and immediately felt that there were many treasured medicines around, and they were not ordinary treasured medicines. Du Xiaofu did not make a move. Dongli Qingqing might be here. And according to what his sister Xiaojing said, it might be related to those mysterious young men and women. Those young men were so powerful, and most of them had a Saint Realm expert behind them. It was better for him to be careful. Boom. Suddenly, a sharp energy beam pierced through the void. It was incomparably dazzling and surging with energy. It was like a column of raging flames, and it was extremely terrifying. In an instant, it arrived in front of Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu had been very cautious all along. He was on guard against this attack. He waved his hands and shook the void. Suddenly, a rune radiance appeared in front of him. It was like a vortex. It resisted the terrifying raging flame energy beam. Then both of them disappeared in the void. With a roar, flames filled the sky. A crimson ape that was about 10 feet tall walked out. Crimson flames burned all over its body, distorting the void. The blazing heat swept out like a torrent pouring down. There was a faint sound of thunder, causing the surrounding void to tremble and the mountains to shake. This crimson ape looked at Du Xiaofu with surprise. Its entire body was covered in raging flames, and its body was covered in thick fur. It stood in the void and emitted a terrifying aura. It looked down at Du Xiaofu and said, "Who dares to trespass?" Ancient Crimson Fire Ape, Peak Domain Realm. Du Xiaofu looked at the flaming scarlet gigantic ape before him. That was an ancient scarlet fire ape, a formidable type of demonic beast. The ancient scarlet fire ape before him was even at the realm state pinnacle state. If this were in the outside world, it would definitely be an overlord. I have no intention of trespassing. I'm just looking for a friend. I hope you can make things easy for me. Du Xiaofu said to the ancient crimson fire ape. Such an ancient crimson fire ape seemed to be guarding the gate. Just how powerful was the person behind it? Dongli Qingqing's whereabouts were unknown, so Du Xiaofu had to be careful. He had no intention of getting into a conflict with this ancient crimson fire ape. You actually broke through the seal. I'll have to capture you and bring you back. The ancient crimson fire ape stared at Du Xiaofu with confusion in its eyes. It then pointed at Du Xiaofu and said, "Brother ape, there's no need to make things difficult for me. I'm really just looking for a friend. Please make things easy for me." Du Xiaofu said to the ancient crimson fire ape, "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." The primordial scarlet fire ape completely ignored Du Xiaofu. Its 10-meter-tall body continued to stride forward. As it took a step forward, space trembled. As a blazing aura surged, its dustpan-like hand directly grabbed at Du Xiaofu, causing space to twist like a fried dough twist under its large hand. "There's no need to make things difficult for me." Du Xiaofu frowned slightly. He didn't move at all as he threw a punch at the giant hand. Bang! The void trembled as Du Xiaofu's fist collided with the ape's hand. Golden light spilled out and flames splashed. Thump, thump. The ancient crimson fire ape staggered back a dozen steps before stabilizing its body. When it looked at Du Xiaofu again, the astonishment in its eyes became more and more intense. As Xiao Jing, as Xiao Yun's Xiao, as Yang, Xiao Xiao, Xiao, Xiao Jing, these mysterious Yin Chong Yin Yun, were Yang Chaz's Yun Yin Yu's heaven, S Yu's Yu Yang. Not only were there powerful demonic beasts in the heavenly Yu Mountain, but there were also humans who had passed down their legacies from ancient times. Every single one of them was extraordinary, and they were all absolute experts. Du Xiaofu's Yu Yang swept his gaze across these young men and women. Then, he fixed his eyes on the ancient crimson fire ape's ice dragon that was guarding the 3 lives golden lotus. There was a girl who looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. This was the first time he had seen her. They had never met when they first met. The girl's face was very beautiful, and her figure was slender and graceful. She was dressed in a light green long dress, and she was filled with a celestial aura. Her temperament was indifferent, and she was elegant and refined. She was like a banished immortal. The girl was riding on a snow-white ancient white eagle, standing side by side with the ancient crimson fire ape's ice dragon. Her eyes moved away from the ancient crimson fire ape that was crawling up from the ground. Then her eyes fell on Du Xiaofu. Her eyes were clear, as bright as the stars, and as clear as autumn water. "You were able to pass through the seal. For you." On the ancient crimson fire ape's ice dragon, the leading man in the ancient crimson fire ape's ice dragon looked at Du Xiaofu. His voice was calm, but it made people tremble for no reason. A look of surprise flashed across the man's eyes. The seal had not been broken, but someone had actually broken in. This was a big deal. Since the other party could easily injure the ancient crimson fire ape, he was obviously not weak. "We've met before." Du Xiaofu looked at the man in the ancient crimson fire ape's ice dragon and said, I have a female friend who should have entered this place. I'm here to look for her. I hope you can make it easy for me. I promise I won't touch anything here. Outsiders can't enter this place at all. I think you must have found the wrong place. How did you come in? The beautiful girl on the ancient crimson fire ape's ice dragon spoke. Her voice was clear and moving, and she had been curiously sizing up Du Xiaofu. She knows this set of steps. Perhaps she has already entered this place. I wonder if any of you have seen her before? As soon as Du Xiaofu's voice fell, a golden light flashed under his feet. His figure floated like a god, changing unpredictably. Suddenly, a fleeting afterimage streaked across the void, and then he stopped in the void. Looking at the group of mysterious young men and women in front of him, Du Xiaofu used the carefree steps. Previously, when he fought with the man in the ancient crimson fire ape, the man in the ancient crimson fire ape retreated because of the carefree steps. There might be a great connection between the two. When Dongli Qingqing entered this place, Du Xiaofu guessed that she must have encountered these mysterious people. It's the carefree steps. A cry of surprise came from the beautiful girl on the ancient crimson fire ape's ice dragon. Her limpid eyes rippled violently, and her delicate face changed color. The surrounding young men and women were all moved. Their faces changed color, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. It's you! The man in the ancient crimson fire ape stared at Du Xiaofu. He recognized Du Xiaofu. Although the appearance of the person in front of him had changed, the ancient crimson fire ape's carefree steps immediately made him feel the former's identity. The person you're looking for is not here. Go back the way you came. This is not a place you should be, the man in the ancient crimson fire ape said to Du Xiaofu. His calm expression gave people a feeling of indifference. Since I'm here, I have to find her. From the eyes of the man in the ancient crimson fire ape, Du Xiaofu felt that the former might be hiding something. I said, the person you're looking for is not here. If you don't leave, you'll die. The man in the ancient crimson fire ape said, I'm here to find someone. When I find her, I'll naturally leave. Du Xiaofu increasingly felt that the former seemed to be deliberately hiding something. Dongli Qingqing must be here. Brother, he knows the carefree steps. Could it be that he's looking for Qing? The beautiful girl said to the man in the ancient crimson fire ape. Brun, I'll take care of this. The man in the ancient crimson fire ape interrupted the beautiful girl. He looked at Du Xiaofu. A trace of fluctuation flashed through his eyes, but his voice was still calm. He said, Who are you? What's the name of the person you're looking for? What's her relationship with you? I'm Du Xiaofu from the barren country. The person I'm looking for is called Dongli Qingqing. She's my wife, Du Xiaofu said. However, when they heard Du Xiaofu's words, the expressions of all the young men and women on the ancient crimson fire ape changed. Swish swish. All eyes fell on Du Xiaofu. They stared closely at Du Xiaofu. What did you say? She's your wife? The man in the ancient crimson fire ape's face changed immediately. His voice could make people's souls tremble for no reason. It was as if it could draw out the vitality of living creatures. It was extremely strange. Chapter 1960. Translator, H.2 Mr. The beautiful woman called Ruo Yun's clear eyes rippled violently. She's my woman, Du Xiaofu nodded. The man in azure robes stared closely at Du Xiaofu as azure light shot out from his eyes. I'll give you a chance. If you can defeat me, I'll let you find her, the man in azure robes said after a while as he stared at Du Xiaofu. Brother, you should tell the elders about this. He's here to find Qing. The woman called Ruo Yun looked away from Du Xiaofu. Her face hardened slightly as she spoke to the man in azure robes. We'll talk about it again if he has the right. The man in azure robes interrupted the beautiful woman again. He stared closely at Du Xiaofu and said, If you don't dare to fight, then cripple your own cultivation and never appear again. I can spare your life. Hearing that, the beautiful woman called Ruo Yun wanted to say something to the man in azure robes, but she hesitated. In the end, she did not say anything. She also wanted to see if this man from the outside world really had the right to do so. All right. Du Xiaofu nodded. Ripples appeared in his eyes. It looked like these people definitely knew where Dongli Qingqing was. It seemed like he had no other choice but to fight the man in azure robes. If he could really obtain information about Dongli Qingqing, that would undoubtedly be the best. Seeing that Du Xiaofu had actually agreed to fight without any hesitation, the figures on the mounts of the ancient monsters in the surroundings all felt very strange. If he lost and crippled his own cultivation, did this guy really think he could win? You can reconsider. If you lose, you have to cripple your own cultivation base. If you choose to leave now, I can ask my elder brother to spare your cultivation base, as long as you never appear again. The beautiful woman spoke, her melodious voice ringing out in Du Xiaofu's ears. I must find her. If it's a battle, then so be it. I hope you can keep your promise. If I win, tell me where she is. Determination could be seen on Du Xiaofu's face. Although he knew how powerful this green-robed man was, he was an indestructible Nirvana sovereign who had swept away the experts of the various major powers. However, Du Xiaofu wasn't too nervous in his heart. Back then, he had only come into contact with this green-robed man. Now, Du Xiaofu was filled with anticipation. This Nirvana sovereign from the ancient era had the same level of cultivation. Du Xiaofu wondered how he would fare against Du Xiaofu. Seeing that Du Xiaofu's resolute gaze did not waver, the beautiful woman's eyes flickered. On the surrounding ancient demonic beast mounts, the other young men and women revealed mocking expressions. In their hearts, how could these people outside be a match for Brother Ruoshu? The ferocious eyes of the ancient demonic beast mounts were filled with light as they looked down at Du Xiaofu and roared as if they were mocking him. This isn't a good place to fight. Follow me. The green-robed man looked at Du Xiaofu calmly. As he spoke, the flood dragon beneath his feet turned around and swept forward. Oh! Amidst the beast roars, the ancient demonic beasts turned around and left. The young men and women's clothes fluttered in the wind. Du Xiaofu squinted his eyes slightly. A golden light flashed beneath his feet and he immediately followed behind them. Under the sky, the mountain range was verdant and hazy. There were spiritual birds flapping their wings in the forest and spiritual beasts frolicking in the mountain streams. It was like a fairyland. Not long after, behind a spiritual mountain, there was a huge square surrounded by mountains. It looked like a giant mountain that had been flattened. Runes flickered around the square, mysterious and profound. There's a powerful seal supporting it. Du Xiaofu appeared in the void with the group of mysterious young men and women. He looked at the huge square that was supported by a seal and was difficult to move. Swoosh! On the head of the flood dragon, the green-robed man's figure appeared in the sky. His robe was shining and his figure floated down. He was already standing in the middle of the square with a calm expression. Du Xiaofu's toes touched the void. His figure swept across the square under the gaze of the surrounding people. Then, he stood opposite the green-robed man. Does this guy really think he can defeat Brother Ruoshu? As Du Xiaofu's figure landed, the surrounding people's eyes were filled with ridicule. This guy's strength is not weak. When he fought with Brother Ruoshu before, Brother Ruoshu thought he was related to us because of his wave-treading free step. Hence, Brother Ruoshu let him go. But if this guy wants to fight with Brother Ruoshu, I'm afraid it's far from enough. He's courting death. The patriarch and elders told us not to kill people. Brother Ruoshu won't kill this guy, but I'm afraid it's unavoidable to abolish his cultivation. This guy can't really be related to us, right? Don't worry, this guy isn't qualified. Brother Ruoshu won't give him the chance. It's good enough if he can keep his life. On the ancient demonic beast, everyone was discussing spiritedly. They didn't even transmit their voices. It was obvious that they didn't put Du Xiaofu in their eyes. In their eyes, this outsider was no match for them. Brother, the elders told us not to kill people. This guy has the wave-treading free step. You have to be gentle. What if he really and Qing? The beautiful lady called Ryun glanced at Du Xiaofu and sighed. Then, she said to the green-robed man, I'm just giving him the qualification. Otherwise, he won't even be qualified to fight with me. The green-robed man interrupted the beautiful lady again. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said in a soft and ethereal voice, "If he admits defeat now and never appears again, I can do as you said and keep his cultivation." The beautiful lady's expression changed. How could she not understand her brother's thoughts? If this guy was really related to Sister Qing Qing, he really needed to prove his qualification. Otherwise, the elders in the clan would take action. "Thank you, lady. I've decided to fight." Du Xiaofu turned around, raised his head, and smiled at the beautiful woman on the primordial white eagle. The corners of his mouth curled up as he said, "Don't worry, I won't harm your brother out of consideration for you." Chapter 1961. Du Xiaofu's words startled everyone. Even the beautiful woman was stunned. Du Xiaofu understood that these people must know the whereabouts of Dongli Qingqing. There was no way to avoid this battle, so there was only one way to go. If there was a battle, then there would be a real battle. Looking at Du Xiaofu, who was not far away, the man in the cyan battle robe said calmly. On his cold and handsome face, there was also a faintly discernible curve. He said, "No matter what your strength is like, you dared to fight, which has already exceeded my expectations. Remember, my name is Dongli Ruoshu." Dongli Ruoshu. Du Xiaofu looked at the man in the green battle robe in front of him. Dongli Ruoshu was also surnamed Dongli. He was definitely related to Dongli Qingqing. "I don't care what your relationship with her is, but let me tell you, it's useless. There are some things where qualifications decide everything. If you don't have the qualifications, then you can only disappear forever." Dongli Ruoshu looked at Du Xiaofu indifferently. The green light around his body began to fluctuate, causing the space around him to distort. An ancient aura filled his entire body. This aura was devouring the vitality in the void. Anyone who saw it would feel a sense of fear from the bottom of their heart. "I don't know what qualifications you are talking about." Du Xiaofu showed a slight smile on his face. He looked at Dongli Ruoshu and said, "If defeating you is a kind of qualification, then let me tell you, I do have the qualifications." "Is that so?" Dongli Ruoshu looked at Du Xiaofu. His voice was still ethereal. He said softly and calmly, "If that's the case, then I can only make you wake up." Boom! As the last word of Dongli Ruoshu's sentence fell, the void around his body suddenly trembled. Green light shone in the sky, devouring vitality. Runes flashed in his eyes. Dongli Ruoshu's hair fluttered in the wind. His body disappeared like a ghost. As the former's figure disappeared, Du Xiaofu's face turned slightly serious. The former was stronger than Duge Fenshin, Yelu Han, Dong Fangqingmu, Ming Yao and the others. Although he was not afraid of an immortal nirvana stage expert, if he was careless, it might be troublesome. Looking at the current situation, Du Xiaofu knew that he could not lose this battle. "Come!" Du Xiaofu's long robe fluttered in the wind, and the profound energy within his body gushed out without reservation. Golden light burst out, and the bones all over his body instantly emitted a series of clanging sounds. The mighty profound energy was accompanied by an incomparably overbearing energy that distorted the void. After all these years of tempering and adventuring, although Du Xiaofu's temperament was as steady as a rock, his personality was still as domineering as ever. Many demonic beasts and human figures were flashing over. In a very short time, many demonic beasts roared and came over. There were some figures sitting on top of them. There were also some people who came alone. There were men and women, old and young. They looked at Dongli Ruoshu and Du Xiaofu in the square with a strange look. Then, they stood together with the mysterious young men and women. Boom! In the sky, there was a vigorous aura fluctuating, causing the void to tremble. There was a dazzling green light spreading in the air, making it difficult for the people present to look directly at it. With the appearance of the dazzling green light, there were dozens of old men and women who walked out with dignity. There were several old men and women in the front. They were all in their old age. The appearance of these old figures made Du Xiaofu squint his eyes. The aura of these old figures was incomparably powerful. Although they were not necessarily above Dongli Ruoshu, each of them was powerful. They were comparable to the aura of Jialo Yi, Jialo Yuandu, Jialo Guanyu and other elders of the Golden Winged Rock Clan. Greetings to the elders. When these old figures came, the people around immediately saluted. The young men and women who rode on the ancient demonic beasts at the front also respectfully got off their demonic beasts. Chapter 1962. What's going on? An old man stood in the middle. His hair was a strange green color, but his aged face gave off a feeling of great vitality. He wore a plain robe, and his aura was calm, giving off a strong sense of vitality. Du Xiaofu looked at the old man in the wide robe from afar. Relying on his extraordinary Yuan spirit senses, he could clearly sense an extremely hidden and powerful aura emanating from the old man's body. It was likely that his aura was not below that of the great elder of the golden-winged Great Peng clan. The dozen or so young men and women looked at each other when they heard the old man's question. They were somewhat speechless. Granduncle, an outsider has barged in. He said that Sister Qingqing is his wife. Dongli Ruoyun stepped forward and spoke softly to the old man in the wide robe. The expressions of the dozen or so old figures changed when they heard this. Pairs of weathered eyes sized up Du Xiaofu. On the square, Du Xiaofu withdrew his gaze. There were indeed old people behind these mysterious young men and women. Looking at the array, there were quite a number of them. They had been living in the Heavenly Yu Mountain for a long time. Huff! The battle was not over yet. Du Xiaofu's chest rose and fell as he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He looked at Dongli Ruoshu and said, "Use your full strength. Otherwise, you are no match for me." How arrogant! The old figures and the others who had arrived at the end did not know what had happened. Their expressions changed when they heard Du Xiaofu's words. Dongli Ruoshu stared at Du Xiaofu. The former's punch was too terrifying, too domineering, and his fist was still a little numb. Before this attack, Dongli Ruoshu had not taken the former seriously. Back then, he had come into contact with him. The former should be a genius in the outside world, but in front of him, he really did not take him seriously. However, Dongli Ruoshu only truly felt the power of the man in front of her with that blow just now. The former had disguised his appearance and aura back then, and most likely also concealed his cultivation level. When he fought with her back then, he did not really use his full strength. Looking at the former, Dongli Ruoshu suddenly closed her eyes. From her body, a frightening and strange aura suddenly swept across the square and the void. Boom! In an instant, Dongli Ruoshu opened her eyes once again. Green light surged, and the eternal and indestructible level aura on her body climbed to its peak without any reservation. Monstrous energy instantly erupted, and waves of extremely frightening energy storms swept out in all directions. His aura was full of vitality and filled with the might of a supreme being. The green light was dazzling, like a green sun in the sky. Dongli Ruoshu stood in the middle like a deity. The sound of wind and thunder could be heard all around, as if heaven and earth were resonating. Brother Ruoshu is going all out. Except for that mysterious woman from the outside world, Brother Ruoshu has never used his full strength in all these years. Everyone in the surroundings was astonished and shaken. No one knew how many years it had been since anyone could make Dongli Ruoshu use his full strength, including some elders who had even been defeated by Dongli Ruoshu. Now, facing the intruder from the outside world, Dongli Ruoshu was going all out, which made them excited and expectant. Feeling the aura on Dongli Ruoshu, Du Xiaofu slightly raised his head. As the golden light fluctuated, the golden light behind him was boundless, and the real rock's golden wings were activated and expanded. Boom! In an instant, the dazzling golden light was boundless, like a golden torrent hanging in the sky, carrying with it a domineering and fierce aura. When the rock's golden wings behind Du Xiaofu were activated, the domineering aura filled the air, causing many of the ancient demonic beasts to suddenly tremble. Their blood boiled and they could not help but roar and crawl. The aura of the golden-winged rock. Does this person have the bloodline of the golden-winged rock? He is obviously a human, but why does he have the aura of the golden-winged rock? Unbelievable! Unbelievable! The old figures were still amazed, and their eyes were full of shock and disbelief. Feeling the domineering aura on Du Xiaofu and the domineering will brought by the rock's golden wings, Dongli Ruoshu's green eyes also fluctuated. Fight. But there was no delay. In the midst of vitality, green light shone, and with a wave of her hand, a palm print exploded with green light talisman engravings. Like a vortex, it swallowed the void, and instantly pierced through the void and slapped towards Du Xiaofu. Fight. Fight! The rock's golden wings behind Du Xiaofu spread out naturally. With a shake of his right arm, 5 fingers were slightly bent, and a claw print came out of his hand. The dazzling talisman engravings were like golden lightning, as if a golden-winged rock was about to spread its wings and soar into the 9 heavens. This was the rock's chaos-crushing claw. A domineering and terrifying aura erupted, as if the real golden-winged rock had descended. Everyone around was shocked, and the souls of the ancient demonic beasts trembled. The speed of the two was as fast as lightning, and their figures were unpredictable. Chi. Just as Du Xiaofu's rock's chaos-crushing claw tore through the void and was about to touch Dongli Ruoshu's palm print, Dongli Ruoshu's attack suddenly sank, and her figure changed unpredictably, disappearing under Du Xiaofu's claw print. Swoosh! When she reappeared, she was already in front of Du Xiaofu. She turned her palm into a finger, and a green light fingerprint swallowed vitality, and with a terrifying energy, fell in the center of Du Xiaofu's claw print as fast as lightning. Hula! When the two collided, a terrifying ripple of wind, accompanied by broken talisman engravings, suddenly burst out. The space waves above the void spread rapidly and frighteningly engulfed the void, causing it to tremble nonstop. The old figures in the field saw the fierce confrontation between the two figures in the square at this moment, and their eyes flickered slightly, and there were waves in their eyes. Dang dang! In the void, Du Xiaofu and Dongli Ruoshu's figures were pushed back at the same time. Tiptoeing in the void, Du Xiaofu's figure stopped. He glanced at his right palm, and there were some red marks in the center of his palm, which was a little painful. When the strange energy entered the body, it could affect the vitality in the body. Fortunately, it was resisted and destroyed by the golden-winged rock's cultivation method, so Du Xiaofu's body was not seriously injured. Strange body movement. Du Xiaofu's eyes slightly raised. Dongli Ruoshu's wave-like free steps was more skillful than his, and her footwork was more boundless and changeable. Obviously, the wave-like free steps that he had cultivated was not the complete one, and was not as advanced as Dongli Ruoshu. In the previous attack, Dongli Ruoshu had changed her palm into a finger and concentrated the attack on one point. This attack was more powerful and fierce, and that was why he had suffered a small loss. Looking serious, Du Xiaofu's golden eyes were calm, but there was a fluctuation in his heart. Sure enough, he could not underestimate any opponent. If it were not for his physical body and the tyrannical cultivation method of the golden-winged rock tribe, he would have suffered a great loss in the hands of Dongli Ruoshu. This person's indestructible aura would not be lower than his cultivation, which was powerful and terrifying. Green vines of 1,000 miles. Dongli Ruoshu's move worked. She shouted in a deep voice, and her hand gesture changed. Runes burst out and turned into a shadow of a green vine. Countless vines, like flowers in full bloom, pierced through the void and enveloped Du Xiaofu. Facing such a strange attack, Du Xiaofu felt a strange energy that could devour vitality. Light flashed under his feet, and the golden-winged rock behind him flapped. With the help of the wave-like free steps, his figure strangely rose in the void and avoided the attack. Wave-like free steps. When Du Xiaofu used the free steps under his feet, an old woman exclaimed on the spot. Dongli Ruoshu's face twitched when her attack failed. Her hand gesture changed in an instant, and streaks of green light flew out from her body and turned into attacks that swept towards Du Xiaofu. It was obvious that Dongli Ruoshu had practiced these martial arts techniques to the point of perfection. Coupled with the strange carefree steps, when used, it was terrifying and strange, and the attacks were sharp and tricky. Facing such overwhelming attacks from Dongli Ruoshu, Du Xiaofu did not blindly dodge. The advantage of the golden-winged rock tribe's cultivation method was offensive. He used the golden-winged rock tribe's attack to the extreme. Xian Qi surged in the holy gate, and supported by the golden-winged rock's golden wings, Fu Yao sky-shaking wings, and rock descending to the ninth heaven. Rumble. When such attacks collided, it was like a chain bomb explosion. The green light overflowed, and the golden light whistled. The terrifying energy fluctuated like a flood, covering the sky and covering the earth, and spreading in all directions, shaking the void with a rumbling sound. Such a fierce battle also made the surrounding people faintly excited. They had not seen Dongli Ruoshu fight with all her strength for a long time, and they also wanted to know how powerful this extraordinary man was. Bang! With another muffled sound, the two figures separated as soon as they touched. Xiaoyang seal. In the explosion of the golden light, Du Xiaofu's hands formed a seal with lightning speed. The Xian Qi in his body poured out like a flood, and condensed into a bright golden palm print along the seal. With a strong energy pressure, it instantly slapped towards Dongli Ruoshu. This martial skill seems to be too weak. In the face of Du Xiaofu's Xiaoyang seal, Dongli Ruoshu's eyes darkened. Mysterious green talisman runes surged. In an instant, her arms seemed to be covered by a thick layer of tree bark, emitting an ancient talisman light. It was like the toughest armor. In an instant, it violently clashed with Du Xiaofu's palm. An earth-shattering sound suddenly resounded in the void above the square. Du Xiaofu's Xiaoyang seal was shattered, and the golden light shattered. I said that this martial skill is too. There was a smile in Dongli Ruoshu's eyes, but before she could finish her sentence, her expression suddenly changed. She realized that the former's palm had been shattered, but his figure was still as immovable as a boulder. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile, and a terrifying energy fluctuation was about to erupt like a suppressed volcano. Roar! All of a sudden, Du Xiaofu let out a dragon's roar and an elephant's trumpet, which reverberated in the sky. The domineering roar was like thunder, and the energy was like a volcanic eruption. Bang, bang, bang! It caused the world to tremble and the universe to roar. The surrounding void was shattered one after another. The sound wave contained a domineering martial way and a primordial spirit attack, and it swept out in all directions. The figures and ancient demonic beasts in the distance were also greatly affected by the sound wave attack. Some of them turned pale and showed signs of pain. The eyes of the leading old man in a wide robe rippled. He waved his hand, and a green light surged, turning into a light screen in front of him, blocking the terrifying sound wave and protecting the disciples around. What a terrifying sound wave attack! It can attack the primordial spirit. The other old experts nodded in amazement. If they were to face such a sound wave head-on, they would not be able to withstand it. Chapter 1963. The sound waves swept out like thunder, but Du Xiaofu's face remained calm. Although the domineering Tao was strong, it was still a primordial spirit attack. But if Dongli Ruoshu could be defeated like this, then she was not an immortal nirvana supremacy. Boom! Sure enough, as the sound wave swept out, space suddenly trembled, and a terrifying aura spread out from it. Monstrous profound energy surged out like an ocean, and it surged and boiled in the space of the square. Rumble! The heavenly sound was endless, and there were 6 divine rings in the sky. The 6 divine rings burned like divine fire, and Dongli Ruoshu was in the middle of the sky. Her body was covered with bright green light and mysterious runes, rippling with an ancient aura. It was as if a god had descended, suppressing all things. You are an outsider after all, and you don't know the secrets of the world. I came from this ancient land, and I have the heavenly wood martial vein. I am a nirvana supremacy, and I am a true disciple of the Fang Jijia. You can make me use my full strength, which is enough to prove that you are not ordinary, but you are not qualified. Amidst this terrifying aura, an ethereal voice that was calm to the point of indifference suddenly spread throughout the world. Boom! As the indifferent voice spread out, the terrifying sound waves that swept out in all directions were directly swallowed with a rumbling sound. Above the void, with Dongli Ruoshu as the center, a terrifying green light vortex shone brightly, like a green light black hole, and even the sound waves were swallowed by it. The terrifying devouring power spread out, but when it was about 10 zhang away from Du Xiaofu, It was blocked by the golden ping wings on Du Xiaofu's back. What a strange martial vein. Is the Feng Jijia of their origin? The golden rock wings on Du Xiaofu's back glowed with a golden light. Du Xiaofu's gaze was fixated on the figure in front of him. The figure was enveloped in azure light, and at this moment, the aura he exuded was extremely powerful and terrifying. A vortex appeared in the void, capable of devouring everything in its path. Dongli Ruoshu stepped into the void. Her eyes were like green suns. Her heavenly voice resounded in the void. She looked straight at Du Xiaofu and slowly raised her head. It's time to end this. As Dongli Ruoshu's voice faded, the sky above the ancient square suddenly twisted. The surrounding environment changed drastically, as if it had turned into a terrifying void. It made people feel as if they were in an otherworldly space. There was lightning and thunder all around. There was no life, only destruction. Strange, this is too strange. This sudden change made Du Xiaofu's face change drastically. He activated the golden-winged Great Pingbird's technique with all his might, and the golden-winged Great Pingbird's wings erupted with all their might. Only then did he barely manage to resist the terrifying life-devouring energy. However, he could only barely resist it. Du Xiaofu could still feel the vitality in his body being forcefully devoured, about to dissipate in this strange space. Heavenly Wood Star-swallowing hand. The last handprint was condensed. Dongli Ruoshu pushed her hand toward Du Xiaofu. This strange void suddenly trembled rapidly and turned into a terrifying giant hand. It was full of green light and full of vitality, but it made people feel desolation and destruction from the depths of their souls. Rumble! The giant hand crushed down on Du Xiaofu's head. Everywhere it passed, the space collapsed, revealing a dark space black hole. The green light reflected a terrifying afterglow. Heavenly Wood Star-swallowing hand. This is the unique skill of my family. The terrifying giant hand crushed down. The pressure that permeated the air made the blood of the people around boil and their primordial spirits tremble. There was a resonance between the soul and the blood. The Heavenly Wood Star-swallowing hand, driven by the supreme power and the Heavenly Wood martial vein, I'm afraid that no one below the Saint Plane can resist it. Among the dozens of old figures, there were old men and women who were stunned and then muttered to themselves. Dongli Ruoyun looked at the field. Her clear eyes were fixed at this moment. Her charming face was dignified and her eyebrows were knitted. Looking at the terrifying giant handprint, Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. Under the keen primordial spirit power, he could feel the terrible destructive power contained in the terrifying handprint. It was also mixed with the supreme power and the strange power of the martial vein. With Dongli Ruoshu's cultivation, it was absolutely difficult for people below the Saint Plane to resist such an attack. Even if they were at the same level, Dongli Ruoshu was stronger than Dugufenshin and Yeluhan. Although his heart was in turmoil, Du Xiaofu's hands did not have any delay. Afterimages quickly condensed in his hands. The Xian Qi in his body was like a huge wave in the ocean, surging out through his acupoints and meridians. Xiaoyang Seal. Xiaoyin Seal. Ting Seal. In an instant, Du Xiaofu condensed 3 seals. The 3 seals overlapped in an instant. On his right palm, there was a ball of energy covering it. It condensed into a golden, black and silver 3-colored handprint. It was crystal clear and full of runes. The crystal clear 3-colored handprint was quite calm, but there were pitch-black cracks around the handprint. Everyone could feel that there was a heart-palpitating fluctuation spreading out from the handprint. It made the dozens of old experts feel a little frightened. What kind of martial skill is this? It seems to contain a kind of martial way. Yes. It doesn't seem to be just one kind of martial way. There are at least 3 kinds of martial ways. Yes. The expressions of the old experts changed. The terrifying energy fluctuation made them start to change. It's not enough. Let's give it a try. After the 3 seals were formed, Du Xiaofu did not stop. Within his left hand, there was a strange and violent energy fluctuation that suddenly rippled. Traces of scarlet energy that seemed to have solidified suddenly seeped out from the empty space and completely entwined around his palm. As it spun crazily, it impacted the surrounding space and caused it to distort. In an instant, the fourth handprint covered Du Xiaofu's palm. It was as resplendent as scarlet, like the sun in the sky, and the light was like lightning. Extreme Yang Seal. The fourth handprint condensed and instantly merged with the 3 handprints on his right hand. As the fourth handprint condensed, there was a sudden burst of light. The calm energy started to boil, and in a tremor, Du Xiaofu's face turned pale. However, the 4 handprints in his hand were gradually fusing. The 4 handprints overlapped, forming the mysterious 4-division seal. The 4 handprints were connected. As the handprints overlapped, their power increased. It was enough to suppress all living things and move mountains and seas. This was the first time Du Xiaofu had condensed 4 handprints since he had obtained the 4th handprint in the lunar space. This was also the first opponent that Du Xiaofu had to take seriously after coming out of the lunar space. Du Xiaofu also wanted to know how powerful the mysterious 4-division seal, which was said to be able to suppress all living things and move mountains and seas, was now. The 4 handprints overlapped in his hand. The light was gorgeous and a powerful pressure spread out. There were faint roars of dragons, tigers, birds, and turtles, causing the ancient space to tremble. Taiji gives birth to Yin and Yang give birth to the 4 divisions. The 4 divisions gather in the mysterious yellow. Those who obey the heavens may not exist. Those who defy the heavens should laugh. The mysterious yellow emperor's seal calms the world and suppresses all living things. These words were shouted out from Du Xiaofu's mouth. That colorful and gorgeous hand seal carried a dazzling tale of light amidst the Sanskrit sound. In an instant, it collided with that frightening large green hand. That man's martial skill was too terrifying. What kind of martial skill is this? It's so domineering. The eyes of the leader, an old man in a wide robe, rippled with green light. Although he didn't want to believe it, the terrifying martial arts technique was indeed more powerful than Fang Jijia's heavenly wood star-swallowing hand. This made his heart tremble. That mysterious outsider, who had mastered the wave-like free and unfettered steps, had broken into the seal, and even possessed the supreme beast of the golden-winged Great Prungbird clan, and had such a terrifying martial skill. What was his background? In the field, Dongli Ruoshu stopped retreating and looked at Du Xiaofu. Her pale face had a touch of seriousness. Dongli Ruoshu felt that it was tricky. It seemed that she had underestimated her opponent. The more they fought, the more Dongli Ruoshu felt that her opponent had an unfathomable feeling. She had already used all her strength, but her opponent had not yet used all his strength. The sleeve of her battle robe wiped a trace of red blood from the corner of her mouth. On Dongli Ruoshu's handsome face, the green light in her eyes trembled. The talisman engravings on her body began to flow like liquid, wrapping her body. Accompanied by a vigorous energy fluctuation, her face suddenly regained its color, and her aura climbed to the peak again in an instant. Is this the power of the heavenly wood martial vein? Du Xiaofu was surprised. He clearly felt that Dongli Ruoshu's aura had recovered in an instant. Even her injuries were healed. This was incredible. Such a martial vein was simply abnormal. The green light fluctuated like a green mist. Dongli Ruoshu's body was glowing. Her body was filled with green talisman engravings. It was dazzling and emitted a divine power from ancient times. There was a sonorous sound, which frightened people's hearts and souls. Under Du Xiaofu's surprised gaze, Dongli Ruoshu's body trembled. Accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder, the green talisman engravings turned into pieces of green armor, which directly covered her whole body. On the green armor, there were runes flashing like tree rings. It was filled with ancient and frightening power. This is Brother Ruoshu's heavenly wood martial vein armor. Unfortunately, we can't cultivate it at all. The level of our martial veins is too low. In the distance, looking at the ancient divine armor on Dongli Ruoshu's body, many people were envious. With the divine armor, Dongli Ruoshu was like a peerless armor that covered her body. There was green light surging around her like waves, which made her look like she was in a green ocean. Her aura was vigorous and powerful. At this moment, Dongli Ruoshu was in the sky. She was like an ancient god who had crossed time and space to descend. She could look down on all sides. Is she really going all out? What a powerful and strange martial vein. Du Xiaofu looked at Dongli Ruoshu. There was no carelessness in his eyes. Her aura was too strong. Dongli Ruoshu was stronger than he had imagined. I have really underestimated you. You can make me come to this step, but it is useless in the end, said Dongli Ruoshu. Her expression returned to its usual calm and indifference. She strode towards Du Xiaofu. The 6 divine rings behind her were dazzling. Her eyes seemed to contain 2 cyan suns at that moment, spreading a cyan light mist. Is that so? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. The golden wings of the rock behind his back flapped. He flapped his wings and rushed out like lightning. His fist was wrapped in dazzling golden light. It was like a shadow of the golden-winged rock. It directly blasted towards Dongli Ruoshu. Such an attack was terrifyingly fast. Du Xiaofu's every move contained the way of the overbearing fist and the supreme beast energy of the golden-winged rock. Boom! Such a punch was like a sun in the explosion of golden light. The brilliant golden talisman runes were in the sky, shattering the void and shaking the heaven and earth. The overbearing and terrifying aura was monstrous. In the face of such an overbearing attack from Du Xiaofu, Dongli Ruoshu was not affected at all. She shook her arm and the green light surged. In the distorted void, she directly threw a punch towards the former. The supreme force behind her surged and the sound of heaven resounded. The 2 fists suddenly collided. At the moment of collision, it was as if the sun was released above the void. The heaven and earth trembled. Rumble! The sky was like thunder, bursting with a series of rune lights. The bright golden rune energy shot out like golden fireworks, causing the whole sky to be dazzling. A strange scene appeared. Du Xiaofu's overbearing and all-crushing punch fell on Dongli Ruoshu's fist. Its energy was devoured, making the ancient divine armor dazzling. This is not good. Du Xiaofu's face changed. His eyes were fluctuating. Chapter 1965. The energy on Du Xiaofu's fist was being devoured by a strange power on Dongli Ruoshu's fist. That strange power flowed into his body through his fist, devouring his life force and the Xian Qi in his holy gate. Even the golden-winged rock's technique could not stop it and was being devoured. Such a strange change made Du Xiaofu's heart tremble. This was the mysterious power of the former's strange divine armor. The life force and Xian Qi in his body were being devoured like a flood, making the opponent's aura stronger and stronger. Such a devouring made Du Xiaofu unable to retreat even if he wanted to. The golden wings of the rock burst with golden light, shattering the void, but it was difficult to break free from the terrible suppression. That guy is already very strong, but he can't defeat Brother Ruoshu. In the distance, some young men and women smiled. Such a situation had proved that the person from the outside world was completely suppressed by Dongli Ruoshu and could not make a comeback. Under the suppression of the heavenly wood divine armor and the supreme power, who could escape? That guy was doomed. However, at this moment, the faces of the dozen elderly figures and a few experts did not relax. They continued to stare intently at the battleground. It's time to end this. You are not qualified after all. A faint smile appeared on Dongli Ruoshu's calm face. Behind him, the nirvana power of the supreme power suppressed the sky. His green eyes looked down at Du Xiaofu like a god and suppressed Du Xiaofu with the power of heaven and earth. The heavenly wood divine armor was devouring the life force and Xian Qi in his body. I've said it before. If defeating you would give me that right, then I really do have that right. Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly. As he spoke, he formed a seal and the golden light in his eyes was gradually replaced by a blinding purple lightning. Boom! At this moment, lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky, and dark clouds gathered. In an instant, strange lightning talisman patterns flickered on the surface of Du Xiaofu's body, and purple lightning snakes wreaked havoc around him. Purple lightning talisman runes covered Du Xiaofu's body, making him look like a god of thunder. The might of thunder descended upon this part of the world, causing one's soul to tremble. Rumble! Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. This part of the sky suddenly froze. Countless purple lightning bolts spread out with a destructive aura. Du Xiaofu activated his thunder martial vein. At this moment, the lightning in his eyes was like a raging thunderbolt, majestic and impressive. The heavenly wood meridian armor formed by Dongli Ruoshu's martial vein was devouring Du Xiaofu's vitality and xian qi. Suddenly, it trembled violently as if it had encountered something it was naturally afraid of. At this moment, Dongli Ruoshu's green eyes started to fluctuate intensely. You want to devour me? Seems like it's not enough. Du Xiaofu was in the air, covered by the thunder martial vein. The golden rock wings on his back were also covered with purple electric arcs, revealing a purple-gold color. Boom! At the same time, the fist in Du Xiaofu's hand, which was surging with golden light, was suddenly covered with purple lightning. In the strange space around him, rolling purple lightning fell with destructive force, wreaking havoc like a storm. Rumble! Purple lightning swept down, silver snakes flashed, and a murderous aura spread. Although it was not austere, it showed the majesty of creation and the righteousness of heaven and earth. This kind of thunderbolt power, the purest of yang, could be vast and mighty, and could punish all living things. At this moment, all the living things in the sky were shocked. Such a sky full of thunderbolts made them tremble with fear, and a chill crept up from the bottom of their hearts. Boom! The terrible purple lightning rushed out from Du Xiaofu's fist. In a short stalemate, the terrible destructive power shattered the divine armor on Dongli Ruoshu's fist. Bang, 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 bang. In an instant, like a series of firecrackers, the heavenly wood martial vein divine armor on Dongli Ruoshu's arm began to crack and explode inch by inch. The green light dimmed, and her whole body was covered with purple electric arcs, and the destructive power poured in. The heavenly wood martial vein could devour the vitality of all living things, but it could not devour the power of the thunder martial vein. Under the mighty power of the thunder martial vein, it collapsed inch by inch. Puff! Dongli Ruoshu spat out blood from her mouth, and her face turned pale instantly. Her green eyes were trembling with shock. Suppress! With a loud shout, 6 divine rings appeared above Dongli Ruoshu's head, and the sound of heaven and earth was endless. With the power of heaven and earth, she wanted to suppress Du Xiaofu's thunder martial vein. Du Xiaofu was in the air, surrounded by purple lightning. His tall and straight figure was filled with a supreme aura, sweeping across the sky, and could not be provoked. The killing power suppressed the heaven and earth. Break! Looking at the vast and mighty supreme being force, a domineering smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. Purple gold lightning shot out from his eyes like 2 purple gold suns. High up in the sky, purple gold lightning gathered to form a purple gold lightning spear. Carrying a purple gold lightning bolt, it directly shot out. Such a spear, the destructive aura of the killing power, made the space roar continuously. The purple lightning spear and the supreme power collided, and it was dazzling. This was the collision of the thunder martial vein and the supreme power, and it brought about an indescribable mysterious power. The supreme power burned like a divine fire, and mysterious runes appeared, with the power of heaven and earth, and it wanted to imprison the purple lightning spear. The purple lightning spear burst out with purple lightning, and it released the killing intent, showing the majesty of creation and the righteousness of heaven and earth, mighty and mighty. Swish! Finally, the first divine ring was pierced, followed by the second and third divine rings. All the way until the 6th divine ring was pierced. Bang, 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 bang. At this moment, the 6 divine rings collapsed in the void, as if 1,000 volcanoes had exploded at the same time. There was a strange phenomenon in the sky, and the sun, the moon, and the stars appeared in the void, making the void terrifying. Rumble! The immovable and unbreakable plaza, at this moment, also began to crack under this terrifying destructive power, causing the earth to quake and the mountains to shake. Boom! In the monstrous energy, Dongli Ruoshu's body flew out, and her body was covered in blood. The heavenly wood divine armor cracked as if it was about to burst, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Tens of thousands of years have passed, and those who have passed away are sleeping in the orphanage. The world is in turmoil, and the tribulation is coming again. The thunder martial vein has appeared, just like what an old friend saw. Suddenly, such words resounded in the void, and the voice was long and vicissitudes of life. Boom! Boom! A vast wave of fluctuation also appeared above the void, spreading from the towering giant peak in the distance, quietly covering the sky, causing the mysterious runes of the green light to bloom, illuminating the firmament, as if a side of the world was opening. It's the divine ancestor has awakened. When such a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky, the dozens of old figures who were frozen in shock spoke with trembling voices, and then they were extremely surprised. Chapter 1966. Green talisman engravings covered the sky. It was as if a god had descended. Divine ancestor, the divine ancestor has really awakened. Dongli Ruoyun's heart trembled. Her beautiful eyes rippled, and her face trembled with excitement. The divine ancestor had always been asleep on the heavenly Yu mountain. He had never awakened since ancient times. No one in the clan could reach the peak. It was said that only the descendants with the purest bloodline could reach the peak. Not long ago, a mysterious woman had descended from the outside world with the Fang Jijia's token and treasures. She had released the heavenly wood martial vein and reached the peak. But now, the divine ancestor had awakened and sent down a vision. Greetings, divine ancestor. Many old figures knelt on the ground, trembling with excitement. Some even began to cry. Du Xiaofu lifted his eyes and looked at the green light that blotted out the sun and covered the sky. Within the haze, there seemed to be a blurry figure fluctuating. It gave off an ancient aura, as if an ancient god was awakening from his deep slumber. The Saint Realm, this is definitely the aura of the Saint Realm. Such an aura made Du Xiaofu's heart tremble. Even with his nirvana aura, he couldn't help but tremble. Oh no! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu discovered that the hazy figure was walking towards him. The surroundings were filled with green talisman runes that illuminated the void. It was as if they had illuminated the past and present. They surrounded the void and confined the space, causing it to be barren. Du Xiaofu wanted to break free and activate the thunder martial vein. But he found that he couldn't do anything in this space. Then, his vision blurred and his consciousness seemed to stagnate for a moment. In the void of the ancient square, the bright green light began to dissipate. Like smoke being blown away by the wind, the light disappeared with it. The figures around were still in a daze. Those ancient demonic beasts prostrated themselves on the ground, not daring to look up. Their ferocious eyes were crushed and unable to recover. The square was a mess. There were gullies left behind by the peak battle not long ago. Dongli Ruoshu stood on the ruins, her body dripping with blood, her hair disheveled. His eyes were glazed over, and it was hard to tell whether he was shocked by his defeat or shocked by the awakening of the sacred ancestor. After an entire short moment, the gazes of the people in the surroundings of the square slowly moved, and they looked at the heroic young man in the square who had never been defeated, and their gazes surged with shock and complicated emotions. Dongli Ruoshu was a top genius in the clan. He had only cultivated for a few decades, but he had already surpassed many elders. The energy in this place was much richer than anywhere else on the heavenly Yu mountain. Carefully probing with his mind, Du Xiaofu found that there was a trace of energy floating in the air of this space. It was as if it could be directly swallowed into the body. Du Xiaofu was shocked. This vitality energy was very similar to Dongli Qingqing's aura. Du Xiaofu also felt that it was exactly the same as Dongli Qingqing's aura. He took a deep breath. As the vitality energy entered his body, it made him feel full of vitality. Some of the small injuries on his body were rapidly recovering under this strange aura. The thunder martial vein has finally appeared. Such an ancient voice came again and fell into Du Xiaofu's ears. There was a light fluctuation in the void. It was hazy and dazzling. Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. He was alert and looked up in the direction of the voice. Goo goo. When he looked up, Du Xiaofu's throat suddenly heated up. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Du Xiaofu saw a tree, a huge tree. It was as tall as the clouds. It was as if it stood between heaven and earth. He couldn't see the top at all. This huge tree seemed to have been standing here forever. It was so huge that he couldn't see its diameter. Its whole body was crystal clear, with a lingering green color. It was releasing an amazing vitality energy. On the mountain peak, there was silence. It was as if it had been silent for thousands of years. Only this huge tree stood tall. Chapter 1967. Translator. H2D2 Mr. Du Xiaofu intuitively felt that all the energy in the space inside and outside the main peak of the Heavenly U Mountain was undoubtedly coming from this giant tree. The branches and leaves of this giant tree spread out to more than 10,000 zhang. Like a heavenly umbrella, it densely covered half of the sky. The branches and leaves were suffused with a green light, and the aura of life filled the air. This aura of life made Du Xiaofu feel indescribably comfortable, but also suppressed for no reason. Facing this giant tree, he could not help but feel an indescribable sense of insignificance. Huff! Facing such a giant tree, Du Xiaofu could not help but take a deep breath. Such a giant tree towered into the sky, as if it connected the heavens and the earth. It was too inconceivable that such a thing existed in this world. For you, Du Xiaofu's voice trembled. The more he raised his head to look at this giant tree, the more insignificant he felt from the bottom of his heart. It was as if he was not enough to reach the apex, as if he was just a speck of dust in this world. You don't know me, but I know your origins. The giant tree covered the sky and the sun, its entire body sparkling green. An ancient aura filled the air, and it was unknown how many tens of thousands of years it had stood here. The ancient voice was accompanied by the ripples of light, and it spoke slowly. I am of the heavenly wood divine tree bloodline. My ancestors' clan is closely related to the dragon god, the ruler of the 3,000 vast worlds that sealed the heavenly devil battlefield. The Dongli clan is also a part of that clan, and your ancestor is closely related to the heavenly devil battlefield. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu was stunned. The ruler of the 3,000 vast worlds, the dragon god, the heavenly devil battlefield. From these short words, he could feel too many shocking secrets. My ancestor? Du Xiaofu had never heard of the Du family's ancestor being related to the heavenly devil battlefield. Dozens of generations ago, he had never heard of any great figures appearing in the Du family. Several generations ago, an ancestor of the Du family and an ancestor of the Cheng family had conquered the Stone Dragon Empire. They were the strongest known members of the Du family. It's unlikely that anyone in the outside world knows about your ancestor. It's no wonder that you don't know. The green light on the tree leaf fluctuated as it asked Du Xiaofu, I can feel the presence of several spiritual thunders on your body. It seems like it's you. Everything is predestined. The great calamity is about to start again. The demons are already itching to try. There isn't much time left. Senior Divine Tree, what's going on? Du Xiaofu was flabbergasted. This Divine Tree Senior had also mentioned the calamity of heaven and earth. In another world, the Wood Emperor's spiritual liquid was the clan treasure of the Beigong royal clan. Outsiders couldn't obtain it at all. After a cultivator consumed it, their strength would increase. It was even more important to the Beigong royal clan. It would allow the user to clearly sense a kind of wood attribute energy. In the future, when cultivating and comprehending wood attribute energy, it would have twice the effect with half the effort. For details, please refer to Martial Spirit's World. This is the Wood Emperor's spiritual liquid. It can't compare to the Wood Emperor's sacred fruit, but it's not too far off. There's not much time left. The evil spirit is already breaking the seal. Quickly refine it. When these words fell into Du Xiaofu's ears, dark green light fluctuated throughout the sky. Large amounts of branches and leaves stretched out and landed at Du Xiaofu's feet. With boundless energy surging within his body, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged under the heavenly wood divine tree. There was no need for the heavenly wood divine tree to explain the boundless energy surging within his body. Du Xiaofu knew that he had to immediately refine it. Otherwise, even if his body didn't explode, his 5 viscera and meridians would be damaged. However, what shocked Du Xiaofu was that the energy contained within the Wood Emperor's spiritual liquid was actually so boundless that it was terrifying. The boundless energy rampaged within Du Xiaofu's body, whistling and surging. Even with the strength of Du Xiaofu's physical body, under the impact of the boundless energy, his face began to turn red. A dark green light spread out from his eyes. Even the golden-winged Great Peng's blood began to surge violently. The energy is too overwhelming. Du Xiaofu's face flushed red, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. However, Du Xiaofu's heart was filled with anticipation. If he could refine such a powerful energy, his strength would definitely increase by a lot. This was a great opportunity. Refine. Forming hand seals and circulating the golden-winged Great Peng clan's cultivation technique, Du Xiaofu gradually began to refine the boundless energy. The golden-winged Great Peng clan's cultivation technique circulated within his body. With a tyrannical aura, he caught a strand of energy and immediately began to refine it. The energy contained within the Wood Emperor's spiritual liquid was too boundless. At an extremely shocking speed, it was refined by Du Xiaofu into a pure profound energy that shuttled through his meridians. After circulating 36 times, it finally rushed into the divine watchtower. The profound energy formed from the refined energy spread throughout the meridians in Du Xiaofu's body. Wherever it passed, his entire body would feel an indescribable sense of comfort. It was like a gentle spring breeze blowing past, bringing with it an overflowing aura that was filled with vitality. Chapter 1969. It wasn't difficult for Du Xiaofu to realize that if this continued, there would definitely be shocking results. As he refined the Wood Emperor's spiritual elixir in his body, Du Xiaofu also gradually entered a state of selflessness. He controlled the energy of the Wood Emperor's spiritual elixir and refined it. Strands of pure, profound energy formed after the refinement entered the divine watchtower. The speed of this refinement was extremely fast. With this refinement, even with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation level, his aura fluctuated again and slowly began to climb. This kind of climbing speed seemed slow, but if others saw it, it would be incredible. With Du Xiaofu's current cultivation level, this kind of climbing speed was no different from a rocket. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's divine watchtower was like a bottomless pit, absorbing the refined, profound energy. If this speed continued, it was not impossible for him to break through to the Saint Realm. Of course, although Du Xiaofu's cultivation level had reached the middle stage of the Undying Realm, it was not difficult for him to approach the Saint Realm. However, this distance was actually huge. Not to mention, the abundance of profound energy was not the main reason for breaking through from the Undying Realm to the Saint Realm. As he refined the Wood Emperor's spiritual elixir in his body, Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged, was also enveloped in a layer of green light from the inside out. The branches and leaves of the heavenly wood divine tree around him swayed, and mysterious green talisman runes rippled, releasing exuberant vitality. What a strange energy! It seems to be contained in heaven and earth. Du Xiaofu closed his eyes tightly. He could feel a strange energy from the Wood Emperor's spiritual elixir in his body and the rippling aura of the heavenly wood divine tree outside his body. This energy was extremely similar to the energy of Dongli Qingqing, Dongli Ruoshu, and the others. However, when he sensed it carefully, he found that this energy seemed to be untouchable. This feeling was like seeing an embroidery needle fall into the sea, but wanting to find it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, Du Xiaofu did not give up. He wanted to find out more. Especially after seeing that Dong Li Ruoshu's terrifying recovery speed was clearly related to this aura. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was even more hopeful that he could understand something. Du Xiaofu waited with rapt attention. Regarding this matter, Du Xiaofu's stubbornness and perseverance were unparalleled in this world. Back then, he took more than 10 years to comprehend an ancient stone tablet outside the Du clan. Even though he was treated as a fool by the entire city, he still remained indifferent. Later on, he finally succeeded and comprehended the predecessor of the tyrannical fist. Because of this, he coincidentally embarked on the path of cultivation. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged beneath the heavenly wood divine tree. The golden-winged prung art in his body revolved, refining the boundless energy within his body. His mind was completely focused as he immersed himself in a vast comprehension. Du Xiaofu did not know that back in the boundless world, among the 3,000 boundless worlds, the ancestor of the Beigong royal family had also comprehended under the heavenly wood divine tree in one fell swoop. From then on, he led the Beigong royal family to become a royal family. On the towering heavenly wood divine tree, Dongli Qingqing was shrouded in a dazzling green light. Amidst the fluctuations of the mysterious runes, she was still in a kind of cycle. However, the aura within her body was also continuously rising. Towering peaks and towering trees covered the sky. Radiance shone in all directions. Vitality flourished in all directions, illuminating the entire heavenly U mountain. The surroundings were silent. Only the occasional rustling of the branches and leaves caused the radiance to fluctuate. Dense energy permeated the air, rippling like mist. Time slowly passed. The young man and woman who were leaning against the heavenly wood divine tree continued to transform and improve. Perhaps when they woke up, they would transform again. The quiet and vast space had existed for countless years. The entire space was simple and modeled, but it was full of vitality. Occasionally, the roars of demonic beasts could be heard from the depths of the mountain range. In front of the seal that no one dared to touch, the mountain range was undulating. The peaks of the mountains were faintly discernible in the clouds. Many figures stood on top of the peaks. Their gazes were fixed on the main peak of the heavenly U mountain in front of them. They were all living beings from various great forces. It's been 5 days. Why hasn't brother come out yet? On the peak, Du Xiaoqing looked worried. There was some worry in her eyes. No one below the Saint Realm can do anything to him. Du Xiaojing looked at the main peak of the heavenly U mountain in the distance and frowned slightly. She said softly, I hope there won't be any Saint Realm cultivators inside. There's no need to worry too much. Xiaofu's luck is flourishing. He has survived so many calamities. There's no need to worry too much, Jialo Guanyu said as he looked at the people around him. Many of them looked worried. Everyone, we've waited for so long, but the seal doesn't seem to have weakened. No one can break in alone. It looks like we can't wait any longer. As Jialo Guanyu's voice fell, such words resounded in the void. They were mixed with profound energy and were enough to be heard by all living beings in the surrounding space. Hearing this, all eyes turned to a certain mountain peak. The voice came from the mountain peak. The one who spoke was a short old man in a wide yellow robe with a fluttering white beard. Old Monster Gong, what do you mean by that? Just say what you want to say. An elder from the Confucian school looked at the short old man and asked. Judging from the gazes of many old men from the great forces, they seemed to be familiar with the short old man. This seal is too strange. It's been so many days, but it doesn't show any signs of weakening. I believe that everyone doesn't have much time to continue waiting. If this seal continues to exist, then staying here will only be a waste of time. The short old man swept his gaze across the surrounding mountain peaks. His eyes rippled with a faint golden light as he said, There are so many of us. If we can join forces to break this seal, we may have a chance. If there really are sacred medicines in the heavenly U mountain, then it will depend on our own abilities and luck. I believe that apart from sacred medicines, there must be even more treasured medicines on the main peak. The short old man's words were undoubtedly quite provocative. The gazes of many living beings immediately blazed. The short old man's voice paused for a moment as he looked around. Then, his voice gradually became sharper as he said, But, if we join forces, then everyone must attack without holding anything back. If anyone wants to fish in troubled waters, or reap the benefits of others, then leave the heavenly U mountain as soon as possible. What do you think? Hearing this, the surrounding people's gazes suddenly fluctuated. Some living beings looked at each other and observed the movements of all sides. My Snow Leopard clan has no problem breaking the seal if we join forces. My Tianju clan has no problem as well. After a few breaths, Many voices suddenly sounded from all around. They were all from some extraordinary forces. Although these forces couldn't be compared to the Confucian school, Taoist school, and so on, there were still some powerful domain realm experts present. Amitba. We've been waiting for many days. This idea is not bad. If we join forces and have a chance to break the seal, then we can indeed give it a try. The old monk beside Hung Lun from the Buddhist school said. His voice echoed in the sky like a great bell. Chapter 1970. We can try breaking this seal if we join forces. Indeed, we can try. The Confucian faction and Taoist faction had the backing of their elders. In the face of such a helpless situation, Old Monster Gong's suggestion was indeed the only solution. Otherwise, everyone would have wasted so much time on the Heavenly Yu Mountain. Almost all the precious medicines that the various factions had obtained had been taken away by that mysterious man. The sacred medicine on the main peak of the Heavenly Yu Mountain was their greatest hope and also the greatest temptation in their hearts. Then let's join forces to break the seal. Everyone, let's work together. We'll definitely be able to break this seal. As the Taoist faction, Confucian faction, and Buddhist faction nodded in agreement, the surrounding living beings were eager to give it a try. More and more living beings had gathered over the past few days. They were all aware of their own cultivation and strength. The Confucian faction, Taoist faction, Golden-Winged Great Peng clan, and other experts were all waiting. How would they dare to force their way through? So many experts had already died, so it was even more impossible for them to break through. Now that the various factions were joining forces to break the seal, it was naturally the best news for them. Amidst the commotion and clamor, the people from the Confucian faction, Taoist faction, Buddhist faction, and other major factions all looked over. They all knew that the strongest forces present were undoubtedly the Golden-Winged Great Peng clan and the Desolate Country. There was also Du Shaojing. He seemed to be of legalism, but under such circumstances, he was clearly also a member of the Desolate Country. If the Golden-Winged Great Peng clan and the Desolate Country did not agree to join forces, then even if all the living beings present worked together with their full strength, the chances of breaking the seal would still be very slim. Looking at the complicated gazes from the various factions, Du Shaoqing looked at the short old man who had suggested joining forces to break the seal. Her small lips curled slightly as she asked softly, "Who's that old fellow?" "He's the ancient golden-devouring rat clan's Grand Elder Gong Gong. His cultivation is at the Master Region realm. He's not weak," Du Shaoqing said to Du Shaoqing. "The archaic goldbiter rats aren't weak." Du Shaoqing knew about the archaic goldbiter rats. They were a powerful race among beasts. I wonder what the elders of the Golden-Winged Great Rocks and the Desolate Country think? Gong Chang also looked at the Desolate Country's lineup. His tone was much more polite, and there was even a hint of reverence in it. That was reverence for the Golden-Winged Great Rocks. Gong Chang also knew very well that although there were many experts present, including the Confucian school, Taoist school, and Buddhist school of thought, without the participation of the Desolate Country and the Golden-Winged Great Rocks, the chances of breaking the seal would be slim. Mo Tianxiao, Du Shaoqing, Sacred Array Child Jin Qingchun, and the others looked at Jialo Guanyu and Jialo Zhiheng. It was very clear what the Desolate Country would choose to follow the Golden-Winged Great Rocks. Let's work together to break the seal. Elder Jialo Guanyu spoke. There was a hint of dominance in his voice for no reason. There had been no news of Du Shaofu entering the seal. Although Elder Jialo Guanyu and the others looked calm, they were actually worried and wanted to break the seal to investigate. Then it's decided. Everyone, use all your strength to break the seal. If anyone wants to fish in troubled waters, then bear the consequences. Gong Chang revealed a smile. At this moment, the Golden-Winged Great Rock's decision represented the hope of breaking the seal by force. Let's work together to break the seal. The main peak of the Heavenly Yu Mountain must have sacred medicine. All the living beings looked at the towering peak from afar. Energy spread out, and multicolored light shot into the sky. The temptation of sacred medicine was irresistible to all the living beings present. Even if their lives were threatened, they still wanted to fight for it. Boom! Suddenly, just as the living beings were in an uproar, the entire void suddenly shook. Following this movement, all eyes immediately focused on the space behind them. The source of the shaking was the space behind them. Boom! In the space behind them, spatial ripples suddenly began to appear. There was a vigorous energy aura shaking and spreading. There was also a sky full of demonic chi and evil chi. Above the void, there was a black fog surging, covering the sky and the sun. There were faint electric arcs shuttling back and forth. Woo! The roars of beasts resounded. Within the monstrous baleful aura and demonic aura, numerous enormous beast-shaped and human-shaped figures appeared. They were densely packed and stretched on endlessly, just like a black ocean. There were also ferocious birds flapping their wings, filled with demonic chi. It was as if countless black crows were occupying the sky, spreading to the end of the line of sight. Awoo! The ear-piercing roars of beasts were heard. It was like the cries of ghosts and the howls of gods, and thunder resounded in the vast sky. Oh no, it's evil spirits. Oh no, demonic beasts, it's a beast tide. Everyone be careful. When such a scene appeared, the living beings on the surrounding mountain peaks immediately trembled. Many of them cried out in alarm. The experts of Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, and other sects were also shocked. Jialo Guanyu, Zhen Qingchun, Du Shaojing, and the others frowned when they saw this scene. So many evil spirits and devil-fiend beasts blotted out the sky and covered the earth. It was too terrifying. Just from that terrifying aura, one could sense that there were many devil-fiend beasts and evil spirit experts. Everyone, be careful. Everyone. Jialo Guanyu's golden eyes were clear. Golden light suddenly appeared around his body, and a domineering and fierce aura faintly spread out. The golden light in his eyes looked at the tide of evil spirits and demonic beasts that covered the sky and the sun, reminding everyone. The tide of evil spirits and demonic beasts that covered the sky and the sun approached. Dozens of figures rushed out from the monstrous demonic chi and evil chi. There were not many of them, but the aura on their bodies was exceptionally vigorous. At this moment, among the shocked living beings present, many of their gazes fell on the first three figures. They were three tall and straight figures. The man in the middle slightly raised his head. On his exquisitely sculpted handsome face, his deep gaze swept across the surroundings. Finally, it fell on Du Shaojing, who was in the desolate country's formation. There was a slight fluctuation in his eyes, but then a smile appeared in his eyes, with a faintly discernible playful smile. On the left, there was a man with black hair and black clothes. His long black hair draped behind his neck. His face revealed a devilishly handsome face. His eyebrows were long like willows, and his eyes were like jet-black agates. They were pure pitch black, like the endless abyss at the end of the universe. If one looked at them for a while, they would have the illusion that they were about to be sucked in. The man on the right was dressed in a somewhat strange manner. He was wearing a purple robe, and the hood of the robe covered half of his head. It also covered half of his face. His face could not be seen clearly when he lowered his head. However, the faintly discernible aura that was hidden on his body was able to suppress everything in all directions. Moksha, Jialo Jueju, Emo Lingzi. Heavens, it's them. They're people from the devil religion. In an instant, all the living beings were shocked as they recognized the identity of the three leaders. Chapter 1971. Everyone was shocked. At the entrance of the divine realm, everyone had witnessed the terrifying strength and talent of those three people. Especially the battle between Moksha and the demon king Du Shaofu, it had shocked the world. Finally, the appearance of the divine thunder cauldron had caused great waves in the world. It's them. Facing these three terrifying figures, even the proud sons of heaven like Su Yangzi, Heng Lun, and Kong Sansi were shocked. Du Shaojing's hair fluttered slightly. At this moment, his gaze had also unintentionally landed on Emo Sha's body. An electric arc secretly flashed within his clear star-like eyes. It's Jueliao. Looking at Jialo Jueliao, the expressions of the great golden-winged rocks darkened. The elder frowned. the entire scene changed. Everyone was on high alert, ready for battle. However, in the void, Moksha and Jialo Juelyao's gazes swept across the surroundings. Their figures didn't stop for long. They didn't pay attention to anyone present. They directly rushed forward and stopped in front of the seal. Towering peaks and towering trees covered the sky. Light shone in all directions. The branches and leaves of the towering trees that covered half the sky rustled. Along with the light, dense energy permeated the void, spreading like mist. It was like a paradise. A man and a woman, one sitting on a fallen leaf, the other leaning against a tree. Dazzling green light pervaded the air, continuing to transform and improve. Little guys, there's not much time left. Not much time left. This ancient voice echoed in the mountain peak, as if it was talking to itself. Boom. Suddenly, the towering peak trembled. You can't stop me anymore. Time is up. No one can stop all of this. No one. Suddenly, this voice came from an unknown place. You failed back then, so you've already failed. If you want to leave, I'm afraid it's not enough. The ancient voice had a sharpness to it. The branches and leaves in the sky rustled. Monstrous light soared into the sky, and a vast and boundless vitality rippled. In front of the seal, Moksha was in the air. He waved his hands slightly behind him. Break the seal? At the instant Moksha's palm landed, a figure leapt out as a sinister voice rang out. A terrifying devil chi gushed out from the figure, shaking the void. Such an aura wasn't any weaker than Han Ke Yao and the others who were already dead. Roar, woo woo. In an instant, the entire world began to tremble violently. Waves of terrifying evil chi and demonic chi began to spread out. Evil spirits howled, demonic fiend beasts roared, shaking this ancient world. The cries of ghosts and howls of gods and the roars of beasts spread out, resounding for thousands of miles. The black fog in the sky was accompanied by demonic aura, covering the sky and the sun. The baleful aura was oppressive, causing people to tremble in fear. What are they doing? The devil religion and evil spirits are indeed together. Is the devil religion trying to provoke the world? Such a terrifying aura made all the powerhouses of the major forces tremble and gasp. In an instant, countless evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts roared from all directions. Crimson eyes surged as they let out ear-piercing howls and roars. In an instant, they swept towards the main peak of the Heavenly U Mountain in an endless stream. Woo-woo, the roars of beasts were like thunder as their auras swept across the sky. Countless human-shaped evil spirits and beast-like evil spirits appeared. The demonic fiend beasts traversed the void, causing the entire world to tremble. Boom! Numerous evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts approached the seal. Terrifying green talisman runes soared into the sky, causing the void to tremble. Countless life-devouring vortexes appeared in the surroundings. An ancient aura swept out, devouring everything. Chi-La! The demonic fiend beasts and evil spirits at the forefront were immediately devoured. Their bodies didn't age, but instead began to wither. The vitality in their bodies drained away as terrifying roars continued. Then, they turned into dried corpses and black fog, disappearing into the void. Rumble! Woo-woo! However, at the same time, the densely packed evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts also began to attack. In an instant, the wind and clouds surged. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, covering the monstrous demonic aura and demonic aura. It shook one's soul. Woo-woo! Woo-woo! Countless evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts roared. Some of the beasts occupied the void, their crimson eyes surging as they let out ear-piercing howls. They attacked the seal without any fear of death. Rumble! Woo-woo! The seal trembled. Waves of strange vitality and runes shone brightly as they devoured a large number of evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts. However, the seal was also constantly trembling from the impact of the densely packed attacks. Woo-woo! The sound of ghosts crying and gods howling reverberated, causing the living beings behind to shudder in fear as they watched from afar. The people from the various major forces had solemn expressions. No one had thought that moksha would actually bring so many evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts. Among them, there was no lack of powerful evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts. The evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they broke the seal. The sky changed color, and the vast space became dark. The sounds of ghosts crying and gods howling and the rumbling of energy reverberated between heaven and earth. Someone is attacking the seal. In the lush green world, figures leaped out one after another. An old figure looked at the trembling seal in front of him. Dazzling light shone, and muffled sounds reverberated in the void. He was shocked and frowned. "Elder, the seal was left behind by our ancestors since ancient times. It's probably a fool's dream if they want to break it," a middle-aged man said. He had absolute confidence in the seal. Even though the seal was personally placed by our ancestors, it has already been here for far too long. After countless years of corrosion from the battlefield, it has long since lost its original power to protect our people, said the old man in the lead. The huge commotion caused by the formation being broken caused his old face to freeze slightly. "Come, who dares to break into our heavenly U mountain?" Some young disciples' eyes were filled with dazzling green light. They clenched their fists and were eager to give it a try. They were not afraid of the people from the outside world, and they wanted to fight. Rumble. Outside the seal, deafening rumbling noises continued to reverberate in the air. Those evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts were not afraid of death. They continuously attacked the seal. The ancient pressure on the seal swept out and swallowed countless demonic fiend beasts and evil spirits. However, there were too many demonic fiend beasts and evil spirits. Among them, there was no lack of powerful demonic fiend beasts and evil spirits attacking. Many cracks appeared on the seal. The strange seal was filled with light. There were talismans and mysterious patterns automatically repairing the cracks. However, the repairing speed was not as fast as those evil spirits and demonic fiend beasts. That seal is too strong. Amidst their shock, the living beings in the back of the sky secretly gulped as they watched the endless stream of devilish beasts and evil spirits being annihilated. If they had joined forces to break the seal just now, just how many living beings would have been sent to their deaths? The seal was much more difficult to shake than they had imagined. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.